Chapter 829. Actually, Qin Sheng was not surprised that his aunt would call him. Such a big thing happened to the Qin family and other people already knew about it. How could the Zhu family not know about it? Moreover, the Zhu family had been paying attention to the Qin family's affairs. They did not call or ask or care about it, which meant that the Zhu family deliberately kept silent and did not want to get involved in the Qin family's affairs. After all, the two families did not have much contact in these years. Now, the only relationship left was maintained by Qin Sheng and Qin Ran. To be honest, Qin Sheng had been waiting for this call to see how resolute the Zhu family was. He definitely would not take the initiative to call the Zhu family, because when he was in Shanghai, he had gotten a clear answer from the Zhu family twice. Therefore, it was unnecessary for Qin Sheng to make this call again. This was the remaining dignity of the Qin family. Even if the old man was here, he would not allow him to make this call. Now, his aunt suddenly called him to show her concern. Qin Sheng did not know whether this call was on behalf of his aunt or on behalf of the Zhu family. But no matter what, Qin Sheng was very grateful in his heart. His aunt was still the same aunt who did not abandon them. As for the meeting with his aunt at night, Qin Sheng did not have too much expectation. After all, many things were not so simple. He understood the situation and attitude of his aunt and the Zhu family. He just took this meeting at night as his aunt's concern for them. After Qin Sheng finished the call with his sister, as he thought, Qin Ran also had the same idea. She said she got it and asked him to send the address to her. She could go there directly. Qin Sheng was taking action, so was Qin Ran. Compared with Qin Sheng, who had just entered Siju City and was inexperienced, Qin Ran grew up in Siju City. Most of her friends and childhood friends were second-generation children. Among them, there were many whose fathers were now in high positions. For example, Ma Weiyang, the hot-tempered princess, whose father was now popular in the government. Ever since the Qin family was in trouble, many people had taken the initiative to distance themselves from Qin Ran. Some of them might be opportunistic, and some might be pressured by their families. However, there were still some who stayed by her side. After all, they had been friends for so many years, and it was not easy to break them. In Ma Weiyang's apartment in Wangjing, Qin Ran's childhood friends were giving her advice. Everyone was inquiring about Qin Chang'an, but there was little success. After all, this matter involved too many people, and it was not something they could easily find out. Even if their fathers knew some inside information, it was impossible for them to casually tell them. Who didn't know their relationship with Qin Ran? In the face of such major issues, these elders knew their limits. Otherwise, how could they have reached their current positions? Other than Ma Weiyang, Zhang De, and Yin Hao, who was a few years younger than them, Fan Deji was not here this time. No one knew if he could not come because he had something to do, or he deliberately chose to avoid the limelight. Ran, how could I not get any information from the old man? I just tried to ask him indirectly, but he was not moved at all. In the end, I directly made a scene, but the old man still did not give in. The higher the official, the more arrogant he is. I have to ask my mother to teach him a lesson. Ma Weiyang chattered on. It seemed that she had a lot of resentment towards her old man. Although she knew very well what was going on, she really could not be cruel to Qin Ran. After all, she was her best friend. They had been together for so many years. How could she not help the Qin family when they encountered such a big problem? Ma Weiyang's apartment was exquisitely decorated, and there were many contemporary and modern works of art. Usually, she would only come here when she had a conflict with her husband. This time, it was just to accompany Qin Ran. After all, it was somewhat inconvenient to be at home. Anyway, her husband did not dare to say anything. "It's okay, I know." "Thank you," Qin Ran said sincerely. She knew that Ma Weiyang had been through so many years of trust. Zhang De poured some tea for Ma Weiyang and Qin Ran. He said thoughtfully, To be honest, no one can get any information at this time. After all, it is too sensitive. No one is willing to get involved in this. I think we should wait for a period of time, until the limelight dies down. When Ma Weiyang heard this, she immediately retorted, Zhang De, are you stupid? Don't you know this kind of thing? If something happens, we have to act quickly. It will be too late if we wait for a period of time. Do we want to wait until the final conclusion? Alright, then you can try. It's not like we haven't tried our best on your side and mine. From the attitude of these elders, we can see that this is not an ordinary matter, Zhang De said impatiently. Qin Ran was a little touched, but also a little helpless. She said, stop arguing. I know you are all doing this for me, and I also know that you have tried your best. I will think of a solution for this matter myself. Yi Hao, who had been silent all this while, suddenly interrupted. Sister Ran Ran, I heard some news from my grandfather. Do you want to hear it? Actually, it is not very practical. I just heard a few words from my grandfather. Yi Hao did not usually talk much in front of his brothers and sisters. After all, he was relatively young and was their little follower. However, Yi Hao's background was not simple, so they usually did not ignore his existence. Ma Weiyang directly stood up and shouted at Yi Hao, Ah, little Haozi, what news do you have? Hurry up and say it. Don't hide it. Little Haozi was the nickname Ma Weiyang had given Yi Hao. It was just that sometimes she called him that and sometimes she did not. Yi Hao was already used to it. He looked at Qin Ran and said slowly, Sister Ran Ran, my grandfather said that now the higher-ups have not reached a consensus on how to deal with this matter. Some people want to punish you severely, while others want to deal with it according to the circumstances. So during this period, no one can see you. I guess you can only find a way to meet Uncle Qin when the opinions are unified. After hearing Yi Hao's words, Zhang De immediately echoed, Little Haozi is right. It is very likely that this is the case. By the way, Ran Ran, have they started to investigate the Chang'an system? Qin Ran thought for a moment and replied, Although they have taken a few executives to assist in the investigation, there is no comprehensive investigation on the Chang'an system. However, the Chang'an system is already on the alert. I think it is only a matter of time. Zhang De said quietly, Then there is no hurry. Let's wait for the news. Ma Weiyang then asked, Now that your old man is not here, what is the situation inside the Chang'an system? I guess it is a mess. Can you and your brother handle it? Even if we can't, we still have to. This is the family business that the old man has worked so hard to build. It's impossible for us to hand over the Chang'an school to others. Whoever wants to take the Chang'an school from us will have to pay a heavy price, Qin Ran said firmly. Although she had made up her mind that she would not hesitate to give up the Chang'an school if she could save the old man, it did not mean that they would hand over the Chang'an school to people like Lord Lu. They had to offer enough benefits in exchange. Ma Weiyang held Qin Ran's hand and said, Ran Ran, if you need help, just tell us. We will not let anyone bully you. Zhang De and Yi Hao also said a few words at this time. Although their abilities were limited, they would definitely not stand by and do nothing. This was not what friends should do. Friends should go all out when their friends were in trouble. On the other side, Qin Sheng finally arrived at Beiqizi Street, which was the closest to the east of the Forbidden City. According to the location sent by the other side, he finally found the place. As expected, it was a very expensive sihiyuan. However, it did not seem to be a private house. From the entrance, it looked more like a high-end clubhouse. It was just that it looked more secretive, so it was naturally difficult for ordinary people to enter. When the car that Qin Sheng was in arrived at the entrance of the sihiyuan, it was unknown whether the security guard at the entrance had recognized Qin Sheng's car or someone had already informed him. The security guard signaled for the two cars to drive directly in. There were high walls outside the sihiyuan. Naturally, one could not see what was going on inside from the outside. However, after entering the Sihiyuan, it was a completely different world. There were small bridges, flowing water, pavilions and terraces. It was far from the traditional Sihiyuan in the north that Qin Shing had imagined. It was more like the inside of a courtyard in Jiangnan. Obviously, the owner of this Sihiyuan was not simple, since it could create such a quiet paradise in the noisy Beiqizi street. In a few minutes the car stopped. Qin Shing slowly got out of the car. When he was about to familiarize himself with the environment of the Sihiyuan and guess the background of the Qin family's guardian family, suddenly, a beautiful woman in a Chong Sam walked slowly from afar. Qin Shing looked at her from afar and seemed to be somewhat familiar, but he did not dare to recognize her. It did not take long for the beautiful woman in the Chong Sam to walk in front of Qin Shing. She smiled coldly and said, "What's wrong, young Master Qin? Have you forgotten me so quickly?" After hearing this familiar voice, Qin Shing instantly recognized who the beautiful woman in the Chong Sam in front of him was. It turned out that she was the ice beauty, Fu Rong, who had helped him go to Putian to kill Yan Chaozong. At the same time, Qin Shing had already subconsciously guessed the specific identity of the guardian family that he was going to meet at this moment. It turned out that they had already taken action. Among the 3 guardian families of the Qin family, so far, only the Qin family had taken the initiative to help. Since they knew the Qin family's identity and knew the Qin family's current situation, they still dared to take the initiative to help, which meant that the background of this guardian family was not simple. Qin Shing was instantly interested in meeting them later. What kind of big shots were they exactly? Chapter 830. Of course, Qin Shing did not expect to see the iceberg beauty Fu Rong here. But compared to the previous few times they met, this iceberg beauty seemed to be more polite. She was not as distant as before. At least she knew how to smile. However, Qin Shing did not see her junior brother. That guy was more interesting than Fu Rong. He was extremely handsome. If he dressed up a little, he would definitely be a great beauty who would amaze many men. He was estimated to be as beautiful as his senior sister. Long time no see. I didn't expect that we would meet here. Qin Shing looked at Fu Rong and replied calmly. He was neither familiar nor distant with him. After all, Fu Rong had helped him with something big. Fu Rong's smile was more like a forced one. But even if it was a forced smile, a beauty's smile was like a spring breeze. She said lightly, "Young Master Qin, I didn't expect this. I knew that we would meet again sooner or later." "Oh, it seems that we will meet many times in the future," Qin Shing said with interest. Fu Rong did not continue to exchange pleasantries with Qin Shing. After all, they were not that close. She stretched out her hand and said politely, "Young Master Qin, this way please. Grandpa is already waiting for you inside." Hearing Fu Rong's words, Qin Shing already had a guess in his heart. It turned out that the leader of the guardian families that he was going to meet today was Fu Rong's grandfather. This courtyard house with the charm of a small bridge and flowing water in Jiangnan was about the same size as the Qin family's courtyard house. But the location was much better than the Qin family's courtyard house. Qin Shing did not know where the Fu family came from. They were so rich and overbearing. This was obviously the Fu family's private territory. Inside and outside, the Fu family's bodyguards were guarding every exit. No strangers were allowed to enter or leave. But they did not stop the people that Qin Shing brought with him. However, Qin Shing did not bring too many people with him. He only brought Chong Baji and Yujbak. The rest of the people waited in the courtyard outside. Qin Shing still had this bit of courage. Moreover, there would not be any accidents this time. After walking through the long corridor of the middle court, when they were about to reach the main house, another familiar person walked out. This familiar person was He Wei, whom Qin Shing had muttered a few times just now. Compared to Fu Rong's forced smile, He Wei welcomed Qin Shing directly and was prepared to give Qin Shing a deep hug. Naturally, he took a few steps back. Chang Baji stood in front of He Wei sensibly and blocked his way. His intention was very clear. Chang Baji stood in front of He Wei and stopped him. His intention was very clear. However, He Wei was not angry, nor did he feel embarrassed. He just smiled and said, "Young Master Qin, what do you mean? We can be considered old friends, right?" Qin Shing waved his hand. After Chang Baji left, he took 2 steps forward and said, "I was wondering why I didn't see you. If there's a hibiscus, how could you not be there?" At first, Qin Shing thought that they were a couple. Later on, he found out that they were senior apprentice brother and junior apprentice brother. However, it was obvious that He Wei liked Fu Rong. Fu Rong should also know about it. However, Qin Shing did not know what He Wei thought about it. Of course, He Wei laughed and said. Then, he stepped aside and said, "Young Master Qin, this way please. I'll bring you over." Qin Shing did not know why, but he felt that these two were a little too enthusiastic today. It was totally different from the last few times he saw them. He could understand He Wei's character, but even Fu Rong smiled and took the initiative to chat with him. This was a little thought-provoking. He Wei walked at the front, followed by Qin Shing, Chang Baji, and the rest. Fu Rong was at the back of the group. Qin Shing had seen too many antique styles in this courtyard house, so he did not feel surprised at all. He Wei only stopped when they reached the entrance of a side hall. The side hall was more like a tea room. Outside, there was a beautiful lady playing the zither. Inside, there was someone drinking tea and listening to the zither. It was just that the person's appearance was covered by a curtain. Qin Shing could not see his face at all. However, he could guess that he must be Fu Rong's grandfather. He Wei smiled and said, "Young Master Qin, please come in. Grandfather has been waiting for a long time." Fu Rong called him Grandpa, and He Wei also called him Grandpa. Whose grandpa was this? Was this guardian family the He family or the Fu family? Qin Shing was more or less confused. He decided not to think about these things anymore. After that, he went forward and lifted the bamboo curtain, walking in slowly. Outside the side hall, He Wei looked at Chang Baji and the rest. He smiled and gestured for them to take a rest not far away. His meaning was very obvious. He did not want to disturb the big shots inside. Brother Wu and Ba, he looked at Chang Baji and asked him for his opinion. Now that Qin Shing was not around, they would listen to Chang Baji's opinion. Chang Baji casually glanced at the side hall. He was very clear who Qin Shing wanted to meet this time. So, he nodded slightly and finally left with the rest. After Qin Shing entered the side hall, he realized that it was very big. In the middle of the hall, there was a simple and unadorned yellow rosewood table. On top of it there were 4 treasures of the study and other things. In the middle of the table, there were already a few words written on the xian paper. It seemed that the words were not finished, but Qin Shing could not see what was written on it. There were a few red sandalwood bookshelves around the side hall. Naturally, there were many antiques on them. However, some incomplete old books took up most of the space, making this side hall more cultured and not just pretentious. Behind the yellow rosewood table, an old man dressed in black hemp clothes was looking out of the window with his back facing Qin Shing. The scenery outside the window was also very good. There were lotus flowers and koi fish on the waterside pavilion. The old man casually threw the fish food in his hand into the water, instantly attracting a large group of koi fish. This scene was very spectacular. "I heard that your handwriting has been passed down by old Master Qin. What do you think of these words that I wrote?" The old man seemed to have heard the movement of Qin Shing coming in. He slowly turned around and said. At the same time, he quietly looked at this young man who was no stranger to him. The moment the old man turned around, Qin Shing had already stared at this old man whom he had never met before. It seemed that this old man was not much different from most of the high-ranking people he had seen. Except that his hair was thicker than many people and his face had a few more wrinkles, this old man in front of him was just so. As for the so-called temperament and aura, Qin Sheng had seen too many of them, so it was not surprising at all. Old Fu, old he? Qin Sheng did not answer the old man's opening remarks and asked directly. The old man could not help laughing. He did not expect Qin Sheng to be so stubborn. He replied, "Just call me old he." "What old Fu, old he? Why does it sound so awkward?" "Just call me old he," Qin Sheng insisted. The old man shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Up to you." At this time, Qin Sheng had already walked to the front of the desk. The old man continued to ask, "What do you think of these words?" This time, it was Qin Sheng's turn to be speechless. He did not expect this old man to be so stubborn. He could only look down at the words on the desk. After thinking for a few seconds, he replied, "Not so good. It has form but no bones. I've gone astray." Upon hearing this, old he immediately laughed and said, "Ha ha ha ha, interesting. Only you dare to say this. There are so many sanctimonious hypocrites in this world." Qin Sheng said disdainfully, "Old he, I'm not here to talk about this. Let's talk about something serious. It's time to talk about the matter between our two families." After old he sat down, he waved his hand. The beautiful woman in a chong sam not far away immediately brought 2 cups of tea. Old he was not particular about the so-called good tea, nor did he like overly complicated procedures. He liked to directly brew the tea and drink it. "Young man, what's the rush? What's the use of rushing?" Old he picked up the teacup and glanced at Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng sneered and said, "You may not be anxious, but our Qin family has already reached this stage. How can I not be anxious? Is the He family going to be as ungrateful as the Jing family?" "Ungrateful?" When old he heard these words, his eyes were obviously displeased. He said, "I don't know what the Jing family you mentioned is, but our He family doesn't have anything to do with them. If we really wanted to be ungrateful, our He family wouldn't have taken the initiative to get involved in this. Before anything happened to the Qin family, we were already part of the scheme. Don't you know that?" Old He's eyes were filled with displeasure. Qin Sheng remained silent. It seemed that he was indeed a little impulsive just now. However, this was also to test the He family's attitude. Previously, the He family did that because the Qin family was not in trouble yet. Now that the Qin family was in trouble, he did not know what the He family's attitude was. Hence, after Qin Sheng calmed down, he asked, "Oh, since old He said so, what should the He family do next? I think you already know a lot of things, so I won't hide it anymore. The Qin family is already in danger. It's time for the He family to pay back what you owe the Qin family." Old He did not look down on Qin Sheng. After he was sure that Qin Chongqing would not come out of retirement, all the heavy responsibilities of the Qin family were on this young man's shoulders. Hence, all the decisions of this young man were not only related to the future of the Qin family, but also related to the future of the He family, because the two families were now in the same boat. Without old Master Qin, the He family would not be where it is today. That's why I agreed to let the He family become the guardian family of the Qin family. From the beginning until now, our He family has been waiting for this opportunity, because I don't want to owe anyone anything in my life. It's just that your Qin family has always been so high and so far, so our He family did not have the chance. Now that the opportunity has come, our He family will pay back what we owe the Qin family." Old He looked at Qin Sheng and said firmly. Although what he said was somewhat unpleasant, and many He family members could not wait for something to happen to the Qin family, it had directly expressed the attitude of old He and the He family. After hearing this, Qin Sheng asked directly, "How do you want to pay back?" "Go all out and do your best," old He said slowly. "As long as the He family does not perish, we will definitely not let the Qin family down." Hearing the last words of old he, Qin Sheng was instantly shocked to the extreme. This was the real guardian family of the Qin family. No matter how big the storm was, they would live or die with the Qin family, and they would never be ungrateful. Compared to the He family, the so-called Jing family was not worth mentioning at all. When Qin Sheng looked at old He again, he was suddenly full of respect for this old man. He stood up subconsciously and looked at the old man. Without hesitation, he bowed deeply and said, "The Qin family thanks you." Chapter 831. After meeting the Jing family, Qin Sheng did not have much hope for the so-called guardian families. After all, so many years had passed and his grandfather had passed away for several years. These were all old things. Who could still remember them? It would be great if they could still remember the existence of the Qin family. As for whether they would still help the Qin family, it was already another matter. Taking a step back, the current Qin family was no longer the same as before. With such a huge storm, no one would dare to get involved, let alone these so-called protector clans. No matter how powerful they were, could they be more powerful than the Qin family's old friends? Therefore, from the very beginning, Qin Sheng did not pin any hopes on them. He just wanted to meet the so-called guardian families. Even if they wanted to help the Qin family would have to weigh their weight. However, the Zheng family disappointed Qin Sheng. Before they could figure out the identity of the Qin family, they had already tactfully rejected Qin Sheng. Therefore, Qin Sheng was not very interested in the meeting with the other two families. Even though he knew that one of the families had already started to help the Qin family, he did not care. However, after meeting Old Master He, Qin Sheng was shocked by his attitude. No matter what level the He family was at now and whether they could really help the Qin family, Old Master He's attitude made Qin Sheng feel deep respect. This was the foundation that a real big family should have. No wonder the He family had already taken the initiative to get involved before the Qin family got into trouble. There was no need for the Qin family to say anything at all. Therefore, Qin Sheng said these words. He thanked him on behalf of the Qin family. After this episode, Qin Sheng's attitude towards the He family and old He changed instantly. He was not as cold as before. He took the initiative to start a conversation with Old Master He and was not in a hurry to talk about the so-called business. Old Master He understood this change tacitly. He just smiled and chatted with Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng and Mr. He sat opposite each other. Mr. He was very polite to Qin Sheng. After all, he had long known about Qin Sheng's existence. Now that Qin Chang'an was in trouble and Qin Changxing was not around, the future of the Qin family depended on this young man in front of him. As long as the He family wanted to continue helping the Qin family, they had to maintain a relationship with Qin Sheng. They were bound together for good or bad. Qin Sheng, you don't have to be so polite. This is what the He family should do. Without the Qin family there would be no He family today. It's time to pay back what we owe, Old Master He said calmly as he drank his tea. It seemed that he did not think that getting involved with the Qin family was a big risk. Maybe he looked calm on the outside, but he was under a lot of pressure on the inside. Qin Sheng also drank his tea casually and said, Old He, you may think so, but other people don't think so. Actually, after such a big thing happened to our family, I don't have much hope for the guardian families left by my grandfather. But I want to see their attitude. After all, they owe the Qin family. But the Zheng family disappointed me. Every family has its own difficulties, but the Zheng family is indeed a little unkind. I don't know if the elders of the Zheng family who received the old master's kindness are still around. I believe the old master has a good eye for people, Old He said thoughtfully. Qin Sheng thought for a moment and said, I don't think so. It was a middle-aged man who came today. No wonder, it makes sense, Old He said with a smile. After talking about these trivial things, Qin Sheng then returned to the main topic. Old He, I think you already know about our family's situation. Do you have any suggestions? Old He put down his teacup and looked at Qin Shing. He sighed and said, I already know about your family's situation and have been paying attention to it. It's just that I didn't get involved. After all, your family didn't take the initiative to find us. Your father may only know about the existence of the guardian families, or maybe he doesn't. But your first uncle definitely knows because we have been in contact all these years. Oh, I see. So Old He has met my first uncle? Qin Shing asked curiously. Speaking of this, Old He was a little angry and said disdainfully, Yes, more than once. Last time, I even went to Mount Wutai personally to persuade your first uncle to come out of retirement. But your first uncle refused. Even when your Qin family was in trouble, I was also the one who informed him. I know you also went to Mount Wutai. You must have persuaded him to come out of retirement. I guess the result is the same. Qin Shing said helplessly, Well, as Old He said, first uncle doesn't intend to come out of retirement. But he has his own considerations. I still respect his decision. In this case, I won't say anything more. Anyway, I am more anxious about your family's situation than your family. Otherwise, when your father was not in trouble, I wouldn't have sent someone to look for him, although I didn't contact him directly. Old He said honestly and didn't hide anything. Qin Shing nodded silently and said, Speaking of this, I still have to thank Old He for helping me solve a big problem in Shanghai. Otherwise, I would still have a headache now and it would be impossible for me to return to Beijing so smoothly. But now is not the time to talk about this. Let's talk about what we should do next. Your father is in trouble now, and your uncle can't help much. In the future, the Qin family will still have to rely on you. The He family can only cooperate with you at most. After all, you also understand that the He family's ability is limited, said Old He with a frown. They had helped the Qin family this time, not only because they were the Qin family's guardian family, but also because they owed the Qin family a favor. At the same time, Old He had also made a huge gamble. Old He had helped the Qin family this time, not only because they were the Qin family's guardian family, but also because the Qin family owed them a favor in the past. Therefore, next, Qin Shing told Old He about the current situation of the Qin family, as well as the ideas he and his sister Qin Ran discussed. These did not involve any secrets, so Qin Shing didn't need to worry about saying anything. After listening to Qin Shing, Old He asked calmly, Give up the interests of the Chang and family in exchange for your father's freedom? Qin Shing said in a low voice, That's what I think now. Qin Shing, I don't think it's that simple. Based on my understanding of this matter, although everyone thinks that your father and the Chang and family are the same thing, I don't think it's the same thing. So I think even if you give up the interests of the Chang and family, you may not be able to exchange for your father's freedom, because it's not that simple, Old He said bluntly. His words were indeed a little pessimistic. After hearing this, Qin Shing was stunned. After a long time, he asked, Why do you say so, Old He? The Chang and family is fighting for interests, but your father is. Old He wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. Qin Shing frowned and said, Old He, why can't you say it? Old He didn't intend to continue. Instead, he said, I think you don't need to hurry. You can continue to delay the Chang and family. I will help you fight for opportunities for your father. If you can see him in person, it's best. Then you can ask him for his opinion. I think he knows better than anyone else. Everyone said different things. Qin Shing was more or less confused. He could only gnash his teeth and said, Then I will trouble you, Old He. I can only say that I will try my best, but I may not be able to do it. You continue to think of some ways, and I will also think of a way for you to deal with the Chang and family. After all, our He family has been in Siju City for so many years, and we still have some power, Old He said confidently. Qin Shing was not clear about the He family's background, but he would definitely send someone to investigate the He family later. It was not that he didn't trust any family, but that he had to know the trump card before he knew how to play cards. Otherwise, if he put his hope on the He family, what would he do if he ruined things later? After talking about these things, Qin Sheng was ready to leave. After all, there were still many opportunities to meet in the future. Old He personally saw Qin Sheng out of the side hall. Qin Sheng repeatedly declined, but Old He still insisted. When Old He came out, Fu Rong and He Wei also hurried over. Old He said casually, "Qin Sheng, if the Qin family is short of people, I can lend these 2 kids to you. I trust them to handle things." Old He said casually, "Qin Sheng, if the Qin family lacks people, I can lend these 2 kids to you." Qin Sheng smiled and refused. Old He, not now. If I really need them, I won't hesitate. Old He did not say anything. He just nodded and let Fu Rong and He Wei see Qin Sheng out. After Qin Sheng left Beiqizi Avenue, he directly went to find his sister. Originally, he wanted to see the last guardian family, but because of the time, he could only change it to tomorrow. After all, he had to see his small aunt tonight and see what she could get. Qin Sheng did not want to miss any opportunity now. Chapter 832. When Qin Sheng arrived at Wangjing, Qin Ran had already come out with a few friends. They had talked about everything that needed to be talked about. Although as Qin Ran's friends, Ma Weiyang and the rest also hoped that the Qin family could get through this crisis as soon as possible, they knew very well that this was not a trivial matter. It was also not the storm that the previous big shots were involved in. The Qin family was probably in trouble this time. However, friends were friends after all. They would only hope for their friends to be friendly and not for their friends to be in a worse state. That would only be watching their friends make a fool of themselves. They would never take advantage of others when they were down. If it was within their abilities, if others were to take advantage of them, they would still stand up for their friends. Ran, are you really not going to have dinner with us tonight? Although you have been busy recently, some things can't be rushed. You have to reduce your stress. I'm afraid that you won't be able to handle it if the pressure is too great, Ma Weiyang said earnestly. As her best friend, she was really worried about Qin Ran. Yihao added, "Sister Ran, we're just having dinner together. I'll send you back after that." Qin Ran did not drive today. The driver drove her home after dropping her off. Qin Sheng said that he would pick her up to meet her aunt after he was done with his work. Hence, they had to stand up for dinner. Qin Ran looked back at them and laughed. "I know you're worried about me, but I really have something to do tonight. Qin Sheng will pick me up soon. He sent me a WeChat message just now." Before Qin Ran's voice died away, Qin Sheng's 2 cars had already arrived downstairs of the building. He saw everyone from afar. After the car stopped, he quickly walked over to greet everyone. Now, Qin Sheng was even more stressed than Qin Ran. Ma Weiyang did not make fun of Qin Sheng. If it were in the past, she would definitely flirt with him. "Qin Sheng, I don't have any requests for you. I just hope that you can take good care of your sister. Don't let us worry." Ma Weiyang patted Qin Sheng's shoulder. Qin Sheng smiled and replied, "Sister Ma Wei, don't worry. I will." "Then we won't keep you. Let's meet again next time." Ma Weiyang looked at the siblings and said with a heartache. Qin Ran said goodbye to Zhang De and Yi Hao and followed Qin Sheng into the car. After a while, the 2 cars left Wangjing. After they left, Ma Weiyang and the rest were still standing by the roadside. They were not in a hurry to leave. They seemed to have something to say. "Do you think the Qin family will be able to overcome this crisis?" Ma Weiyang mumbled to herself. In fact, she had heard a lot of news from the old man, but some of it was not good to tell Qin Ran. It was not that she could not say it, but she was afraid that it would make Qin Ran more pessimistic. Zhang De let out a long sigh and said, "It's difficult. Master Qin is not like the others. The scope of his involvement is a little wide. If we really touch Master Qin, I'm afraid many people will be in trouble. It's just that they don't know it yet. Siju City hasn't been peaceful recently, Yi Hao muttered to himself, especially in the financial system. After a few big shots who held the power of life and death got into trouble, who knew how many people would be implicated? Those seemingly glamorous and beautiful local tycoons would eventually be stripped of their underwear. Who knew how many people would have to run away? As a matter of fact, Master Qin got into trouble here. Master Qin and the Chang'an Group had been the aircraft carrier of the domestic capital industry for the past few years. If this aircraft carrier sank, who knew how many people would suffer? In fact, as some people had guessed, when the big shot who was in charge of the insurance industry got into trouble, the Chang'an Group was already in danger. Master Qin had been running around for this matter, but he did not expect that he would be so deeply involved that he would not be able to overcome it in the end. Ma Weiyang glanced at Yi Hao and said, "Haozi, you're still young. Don't be so old. Will you still be able to find a wife in the future? Who would like an old man like you?" "Sister, do we still lack a girlfriend?" Yi Hao said disapprovingly. With his family background and appearance, he did not know how many women would chase after him. Ma Weiyang said impatiently, "I'm talking about a wife, not a girlfriend. Do you dare to bring any woman home? Believe it or not, your grandpa will break your legs. I know your grandpa's temper." Okay, I beg for mercy. Let's go for dinner. I'm starving." Yi Hao quickly changed the topic. If he quarreled with Ma Weiyang, he would lose immediately. What's more, it would be easy for her to hold a grudge against him. Who could guarantee that she would return the favor one day? The place that Small Ant had booked for dinner tonight was at Donglishan. She said that she missed the hot pot in Beijing. She was already on her way there. Originally, she would arrive in Beijing at 8 o'clock. Maybe she thought it was too late, so she changed it to the afternoon. On the way to Donglishan, Qin Sheng told his sister about the result of today's meeting. Needless to say, he did not mention the Jing family, but he mainly talked about the He family and Old Master He. He wanted to see if his sister knew about the He family's background. After all, his sister grew up in Siju City, unlike him, who knew nothing about Siju City. Qin Ran said quietly, "This Jing family is a little strange. But I haven't heard of them. I can ask others later." She was also very angry about the Jing family's attitude. Maybe they thought that the Qin family wanted to ride on the Jing family's coattails. They thought that the Qin family could not survive anymore, so they came to the Jing family. They did not know that the Jing family was nothing in the Qin family's eyes. They just wanted to see what the guardian family left by their grandpa was like. Qin Sheng chuckled and said, "Sister, there is no need to be angry with the Jing family. Since even you don't know them, I guess they are just a little rich and can't help us much. It's better to keep a distance from them. Let's talk about the rest later." Qin Ran said casually, "Well, you are right. Then I will listen to you." Qin Sheng followed up and asked, "Sister, do you know anything about the He family? I feel that the He family is not simple. They should have known the Qin family's identity long ago. These years, they have been contacting First Uncle. They know that the Qin family is in danger, but they chose to take the initiative to get involved." When Qin Sheng mentioned the He family, Qin Ran already wanted to say something. At this time, she said meaningfully, "This old master He is not simple. What do you think of the He family? I will tell you later. Anyway, the He family may really be able to help the Qin family." Qin Sheng did not expect that his sister would have such a high evaluation of the He family. It seemed that today's trip was not in vain. The He family did not let him down, nor did they let the Qin family down. He said calmly, "Well, I will continue to contact the He family. We will talk about the details when the time comes." Qin Ran asked casually, "What about the other family?" Qin Sheng shook his head and said, "Not today. I will make an appointment for tomorrow." When they arrived at the restaurant on Qianmen Street of Donglashan, Small Ant was already waiting for them inside. This restaurant was close to the 8 Alleys and Lulikang. Not far away was the Temple of Heaven Park. After dinner, they could stroll around. Zhu Qingwen was waiting for the sister and brother in the private room. She was alone and did not bring anyone else. After the Qin family was in trouble, the whole Zhu family seemed to have a tacit understanding to keep silent. No one took the initiative to call the sister and brother. It was not that they did not care about them. On the contrary, they cared about them more than anyone else. However, when it came to such a big matter, if there was no elder's order, they did not dare to make decisions on their own. Pushing the door and entering, the sister and brother did not seem to know how to greet their small aunt. They just called her small aunt obediently. It seemed that they were more distant than in the past and were not so close. Zhu Qingwen also felt it. She did not know if they were too tired these days or if they were angry at the Zhu family. Sit down first. Zhu Qingwen asked the sister and brother to sit down and took the initiative to pour a cup of tea for them. She cared about them. Then Zhu Qingwen called the waiter to order. Qin Sheng and Qin Ran casually ordered 2 dishes. The rest was ordered by Zhu Qingwen. After all, she wanted to eat Donglashan's hot pot. Although she came to Beijing many times, she was always in a hurry every time. Most of the time, she went to dinner arranged by others or treated others to dinner. She rarely had the chance to eat hot pot. In the past, when they were in Beijing, there was a Donglashan hot pot restaurant near the Zhu family's house. Their parents would take them there almost every month, so they liked the taste very much. Later, after they moved to Zhejiang, they rarely had such opportunities. After ordering, Zhu Qingwen looked at Qin Ran and Qin Sheng and said, "I haven't seen you for a few days. You two have suffered a lot. If the old lady saw you like this, she would be very distressed." Qin Ran asked tentatively, "Small aunt, does Grandma know?" "Not yet. I'm hiding it from her. I don't dare to let the old lady know. Who knows what kind of trouble it will cause? How will we deal with it then?" Zhu Qingwen did not hide anything. She told them the truth. If the old lady had an accident because of her relapse, it would not be worth it. No one could bear the responsibility. Qin Ran breathed a sigh of relief and said, "That's good. Grandma can't stand such a big thing." "What? Do you have resentment against us? You didn't call us for such a long time and didn't discuss with us. Are you drawing a line with us or not contacting us in the future?" Zhu Qingwen looked at the sister and brother and asked deliberately. Qin Ran shook her head first and replied, "No. We know that small aunt, uncle and you are very busy. We didn't want to disturb you. We can solve these things by ourselves." "You still say you don't have resentment? Can you really solve it?" Zhu Qingwen chuckled. At this time, Qin Sheng said, "Small aunt, we understand. Although we understand, we still have resentment in our hearts." It seemed that Zhu Qingwen would not let go of this matter. Qin Ran and Qin Sheng looked at each other and smiled helplessly. How could they not have resentment? Such a big thing was shouldered by the sister and brother. Although they could understand it, they still had resentment in their hearts. "This time, it is not only my idea to meet you, but also the idea of your uncle and uncle. They are afraid that you don't know how to face and deal with this matter, and finally let you sink too deep. So they asked me to come to Beijing to meet you." Zhu Qingwen went straight to the point and said the purpose of this trip, which could be regarded as relieving Qin Sheng and Qin Ran. Qin Ran was a little surprised, and Qin Sheng was even more stunned. It did not occur to him that small aunt came with the attitude of the Zhu family. Qin Sheng asked eagerly, "Small aunt, what do you think we should do?" "One word, wait," Zhu Qingwen said meaningfully. "Wait." Qin Sheng and Qin Ran looked at each other, as if they did not understand what she meant. Chapter 833. Since the old man's accident, Qin Sheng had met several waves of people. Some people avoided meeting him, some people were ambiguous, and some people also gave him suggestions and so on. In addition, they analyzed and judged by themselves. So far, there were already several different opinions, and almost everyone's opinions were different, which gave Qin Shing a headache. Especially after Zhu Qingwen said to wait, Qin Shing became more confused. What on earth should he do? Whether it was to protect the interests of the Chang'an people, or try to find a way to save the old man, or choose one of the two, he could not wait. Qin Ran asked directly, Small Ant, wait? Just wait like this? When will we wait? If we just wait, we can only see the situation getting worse. Who will help us in the end? What should we do then? At this time, Qin Shing also said, Small Ant, I know a lot of people's stories. If we just wait, I'm afraid the longer we wait, the worse it will be for us. Of course, Zhu Qingwen knew that when she said this, Qin Shing and Qin Ran would definitely refute her. She explained truthfully, If this is not my opinion, but your uncle and uncles, what will you think? Qin Shing was shocked. Uncle and uncles? Qin Ran was also very surprised. She did not expect that it was not her small aunt's opinion, but her uncle and uncles. If it was really her uncle and uncles, then it would need to be discussed. At this time, the waiter began to serve the dishes. Zhu Qingwen did not say anything more. She just said casually, Let's eat first. You must be hungry. I guess you don't have much appetite these days. But we have to solve the problem and eat on time. Nothing is more important than your health. Qin Shing was not particularly fond of the old Beijing hot pot. After all, he grew up in Xi'an, where the taste was more sour and spicy. Later, he went to the southwest of Chengdu, Yunnan, Guizhou, Sichuan and Tibet for a long time, so he preferred the hot pot there. Therefore, he just took small bites and did not eat like a whirlwind in the past. Zhu Qingwen had always been a vegetarian, and her taste was relatively bland. In recent years, she had been living in the Jiangsu, Zhejiang, and Shanghai area, so she preferred the taste of old Beijing. Qin Ran was the same. She grew up in Beijing and used to eat this kind of hot pot, so she was used to it. Zhu Qingwen ordered 2 plates of beef and mutton, and the rest were basically some vegetables. Qin Shing ate very little and spent most of his time watching them eat. This should be very rare for Qin Shing. Auntie, Uncle didn't say why we're waiting. In the end, Qin Shing could not help but ask. Were they going to keep waiting like this? He was afraid that the longer they waited, the more anxious they would be. In the end, they would only be in a mess. Zhu Qingwen put down his chopsticks and took a sip of water. I think you must have begged a lot of people and met a lot of people during this period of time. Maybe they gave you a lot of ideas. But your uncle and I are at a different level. Maybe you don't know how I see things. He must have his reasons for saying this. Qin Ran also asked, Auntie, didn't Uncle say when we should wait? No, he just said wait, 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 and everything will be clear. Maybe your father's problem will be easy to solve. If you are still so anxious and try any doctor, not only will you not be able to solve the problem, but it may also be superfluous. Zhu Qingwen explained very patiently. Qin Shing and Qin Ran were silent. They really did not know what to do. If they went home and discussed it with their aunt, they did not know whether she would agree or not. Everyone can hurt you, but we won't. Your uncle said this for your sake. If you have any problems in the future, you can call me at any time. Don't be like before. Although it is difficult for us to help you directly, who said that we can't give you advice? Am I right? Zhu Qingwen said with a smile. Hearing this, Qin Ran more or less became more confident. No matter what, although she still felt resentful, they were after all her uncle and small aunt. They had never treated her badly over these years. She trusted them more. Auntie, we can wait for the old man's problem, but what about the Chang, an organization? Qin Shing wanted to ask more questions. Zhu Qingwen said impatiently, Shing sometimes don't think too much. You can choose to give up at any time. Don't let the interests kidnap you. Besides, they are so troublesome. Are they really not afraid? At that time, the one who jumps the most happily will be the most unlucky. Many people are watching. After Zhu Qingwen said this, Qin Sheng naturally understood what was going on. That was, they did not need to care about the interests of the Chang, an organization for the time being, and let those people fight for it. One more thing, Sheng you should learn in the future. Not only do you see the short-term danger, but also the long-term danger. Behind the danger, there may be greater danger. Take the interests of the Chang, an organization for example. Do you think only those people are watching? Once the matter with your father is settled, I can tell you something. As long as they have the background to share the cake, they will jump out. At that time, there will be so many opponents. Which one do you think you can face? Zhu Qingwen said after careful consideration. Some people had already been blinded by the benefits in front of them, and some people did not want to be involved in this matter. However, those who were truly capable were all hidden behind the scenes. It was just that it was not time for them to make a move yet. Hearing this, Qin Sheng was shocked and broke into a cold sweat. It seemed that he had never thought about this problem. Now this problem was thrown out by his small aunt, and he did not even know how to face it. So his small aunt reminded him today. Zhu Qingwen looked at Qin Sheng and continued, sometimes it's not necessarily a bad thing to be calm. You can be a rich playboy during this period. She had her own reasons for saying this. Qin Sheng said thoughtfully, Auntie, I understand. I know what to do. Then let's eat, Zhu Qingwen said with a smile. Qin Ran listened to the conversation between her small aunt and her brother, but she did not seem to understand what was going on. The dinner was over soon. Zhu Qingwen's driver was already waiting at the gate of Donglishun. After Qin Sheng and Qin Ran saw off his small aunt, they did not rush back. Qin Sheng suggested that they go to Lulikang, which was nearby. He had been in Beijing for a while, but it seemed that he had not been to this famous place. Walking into the alleys of Lulikang, there were antique shops on both sides of the road. There were also many people setting up stalls by the roadside, holding antiques of unknown authenticity and shouting. Of course, there were also real antiques, but it depended on the big shot's ability to pick up antique. But most of them were definitely fake. If someone was wrong, he could not blame others. Qin Sheng and Qin Ran walked in the front, and Chang Baji and the others walked behind them, keeping a distance. Qin Sheng walked and stopped with interest, looking at these antiques as a way to broaden his knowledge. But even a dabbler like him could see that most of them were fake. Some people's counterfeiting ability was really extraordinary. No wonder this place was mixed with crooks and honest people. If Uncle Jiang came here in the future, he could come over and take a look. He was a real big shot, and had handled too many things. Even the one who opened a museum in the center of Shanghai had looked for him. Qin Sheng, what did your small aunt mean at the end? Qin Ran asked curiously. Qin Sheng said in a low voice, Sister, I thought you understood everything. Hurry up, if I knew, why would I ask you? Qin Ran said impatiently. Qin Sheng quickly replied, Sister, don't be angry, I'll tell you. When Qin Ran and Qin Sheng walked on the street, they were definitely a golden couple. Those who did not know them would think that they were a couple. Their temperament was not simple. Hence, many peddlers were shouting and trying to rope them in, wondering if they were fools and wanted to rip them off. Little did they know that Qin Sheng was also half an expert. Then hurry up and say it. Qin Ran stared at Qin Sheng and said. Qin Sheng replied, I guess what small aunt means is that the more trouble we make at this time, the more opinions some people will have on us. At this time, no matter what others do, our Qin family must be calm, or it will do harm to our Qin family. When things start to become clear, it will not be too late for us to take action. Another possibility is that she wants me to be a playboy, so that I can deceive others, or they will only be more cautious about us. Then do we really have to listen to small ant? Qin Ran was still a little worried. Qin Xing said helplessly, Sister, can we not listen to small ant? Otherwise, what if they really don't care about us in the future? Since small ant can meet us today, it means that they do not really intend to ignore this matter. Maybe it is not the right time, so they can only do this. Are you sure? Qin Ran said doubtfully. Qin Xing shrugged and said, I'm just guessing. Then what about Auntie? Qin Ran said a little uneasily. Yesterday they had some unpleasant things with Auntie. Now they changed their minds, Auntie would definitely be angry. Qin Xing let out a long sigh and said, What can we do? Try to persuade her. Qin Ran nodded, it seemed that they could only do this. Qin Xing did not want to think about these things. He shook his head hard and smiled bitterly. Sister, let's not talk about these things. It is not easy to come here, let's take a good look and see if we can be lucky and pick up one or two things today. Don't be fooled, Qin Ran said with a smile. The sister and brother had been under a lot of pressure recently. At this time, they simply did not care about anything and just took it as a way to relax. As for what to do next, they would take one step at a time. In the evening, when Qin Xing and Qin Ran returned to the villa, Zhao Anji had already returned. She had indeed been active recently. She also tried to get in touch with many people who she had not contacted for many years, hoping to get more information. After all, she was the daughter-in-law of the Qin family, and now she was also the only elder in the Qin family who could do something. Qin Xing was lucky. After shopping there for more than an hour, he really picked up two things. One was a jade pendant from the Ming dynasty, which looked a little old. It was estimated that even the seller did not know whether it was real or fake. However, Qin Xing seemed to have seen the same jade pendant at Jiang Xianbang's place, so he did not hesitate to buy it. He only spent a few thousand yuan and directly gave it to his sister. The other one was a piece of calligraphy and painting. Although it was not the original one, it was also a high imitation of the original one. Moreover, the owner of this high imitation was a master. That was why it was not recognized by others. Qin Xing happened to be an expert in this aspect, so he was lucky. Chapter 834. Everyone in the Qin family was very tired recently. How could they not be tired after such a big thing happened? But no matter how tired they were, they had to keep going. However, no matter if it was Qin Xing, Qin Ran, or Zhao Anji, they all looked the same on the outside. Compared to physical exhaustion, mental exhaustion was the most useless. Zhao Anji, who was more or less tired, was sitting on the sofa with her eyes closed. Qin Jing was very obedient and sensible, massaging his mother's shoulders. Such a big thing happened, everyone in the Qin family was busy, but she couldn't do anything. This made her feel very helpless. She could only try not to cause any trouble. The connections that Zhao Anji had come into contact with were naturally not something that Qin Xing could come into contact with. At least in terms of the game against Godfather Liu, Zhao Anji had more advantages. As for Qin Xing, who did not have any foundation at all, he was obviously powerless. You're back. Zhao Anji heard movement at the door. She opened her eyes and looked over. Qin Ran put the things in her hands on the sofa casually and then sat down next to the ant. Although Qin Ran was cold and aloof in the eyes of others, or it could be said that she was unapproachable among her peers, in front of the elders, Qin Ran was famous for being a good girl. She knew what to say and what to do. No wonder so many people doted on her. What's that? Zhao Anji saw the things on the sofa and asked casually. Qin Ran replied with a smile. Oh, I wandered with Qin Xing at Lulakang after dinner and he picked up two things. Oh, Xing'er, you're really good at this. Don't be so eye-catching. Zhao Anji laughed and then asked, Why did you go there to eat? Qin Ran looked at Qin Xing and thought for a moment. Then she said, Little Aunt came to Beijing and wanted to eat Donglishun's hot pot. So she found a restaurant near where she lives, so she went there. Since the Qin family was in trouble, Zhao Anji had been actively waiting for the Zhu family's response. But so far, the Zhu family hadn't done anything. She really wanted the Zhu family to help. After all, the Zhu family had deep roots now. As long as they were willing to help the Qin family, the pressure on the Qin family could be said to be instantly reduced. Zhao Anji had never asked Qin Ran or Qin Xing, because she knew very well that it was too difficult to ask the Zhu family for help, given the strained relationship between the Zhu family and the Qin family. Was it because of Qin Xing and Qin Ran? This was too whimsical. Moreover, the Zhu family's current position was not something that they could easily make a decision on. Pulling one hair would affect the whole body, and the scope of influence was too large. Therefore, there was a reasonable explanation for the Zhu family's inaction. Zhao Anji was not like Qin Sheng and Qin Ran, who had more or less resentment towards the Zhu family. If the Zhu family helped, she would be very grateful to the Zhu family. If the Zhu family did not move, she would not be angry because the Zhu family did not have the obligation to help. "Oh, your aunt came to Beijing," Zhao Anji said lightly, but she did not ask about the rest of the story. Qin Ran nodded silently and waited for the aunt to ask about it in detail. Unexpectedly, the aunt did not say anything. This was somewhat unexpected for Qin Ran and Qin Xing. They did not expect that the aunt did not care about these things at all. Maybe she was taking a step back in order to advance. After glancing at his sister, Qin Xing took the initiative to say, "Auntie, the reason why small aunt came to Beijing this time is probably because of our Qin family. Is it appropriate for the Zhu family to make a move now? I don't think the Zhu family would be that impulsive, right? Although our family really needs the Zhu family's help, don't let the Zhu family get into trouble because of our family's affairs," Zhao Anji said very calmly. Her words made it impossible for others to nitpick. At this time, Qin Jing said very obediently that she still had some work to do, so she went upstairs to do it first. Thus, she tactfully left. When the adults were talking, a child like her couldn't help much. As for the others, they had already left the living room. Qin Xing explained tactfully, "I don't think it's a fight. Moreover, it's not the right time now. Small Aunt just suggested what we should do at this time. This is not only Small Aunt's idea, but also other people's idea." As for who the others were, although Qin Xing did not say it out loud, Zhao Anji could naturally understand. At this time, she asked curiously, "What did your small aunt say? What should we do?" "Auntie said that the Qin family doesn't need to do anything. We just need to wait," Qin Ran said. Hearing the word wait, Zhao Anji was stunned for a few seconds. Then she laughed and said, "Wait? Did the Zhu family really have nothing to say? With such a big thing happening, are we just going to wait? Until when? When and how long will it take? If we miss the opportunity, not only will we not be able to save your father, but also the Chang and family will have to give up. What should we do at that time? Who will bear this responsibility? Will you go to the Zhu family again?" Zhao Anji was very angry. "It's okay that you don't want to help, and I can understand your family's situation. But can you not do more harm than good? I'm so busy here, running back and forth, and you're telling these two kids to wait? What do you expect me to do then?" Qin Xing said in a low voice, "Auntie, I think what small aunt said seems to be somewhat reasonable. This time, the Qin family's matter is different from other people's. Other people can do something before the accident happens, but the old man has been taken away for investigation. Some people may be watching. If we make too much noise, it will only make some people feel disgusted. In the end, things will backfire. Besides, if we don't do anything, we can see who is peeping at the interests of the Qin family and the Chang and family. Maybe some people are also waiting." After hearing this, Zhao Anji felt that it was somewhat reasonable, but it depended on whose position and perspective she was standing on. You make it sound so easy, as if they see it very lightly. If they see it clearly, why don't they say what to do? It's just their speculation. Do you want to listen to them? Zhao Anji retorted with a cold smile. Zhu Qingwen and Zhao Anji's positions were different, and the interests they sought might be different. So they looked at the problem from different angles, which was why Zhao Anji was so angry. However, they did not expect that the old woman would react so strongly. When Qin Ran still wanted to say something, Zhao Anji said directly, "You don't have to say anything. I know that you are close to the Zhu family. After all, they are all high-ranking officials of the frontier provinces. I am just an old woman without much ability. If you want to wait, just wait. I will continue to do what I should do. At least, as the daughter-in-law of the Qin family, I am worthy of the ancestors of the Qin family. This is your father. Think about it yourself." Qin Ran and Zhao Anji had expected such a result. After that, Zhao Anji said she was a little tired, and went straight upstairs to rest. After Zhao Anji left, Qin Xing and Qin Ran looked at each other and didn't know what to do. Qin Xing took 2 bottles of water and said helplessly, "Aunt may have a problem with the Zhu family. I've already said that this matter can be put aside for now, but you insist on bringing it up. How should we clean up this mess now? What should we do?" Qin Ran was at a loss as to what to do. Now that there was an internal conflict, things would become even more complicated. Qin Xing thought for a while and said, "Sister, I still think small aunt is right. They may be more considerate than us. No matter how hard we try, we are like headless flies. Are we just fighting for the little benefit of the Chang and system? As small aunt said, have we ever thought about whether the Chang and family will still belong to the Qin family if father's thing really gets out of hand? What should we do with aunt?" Qin Ran was more concerned about this matter. Qin Xing gritted his teeth and said, "If we still can't persuade aunt, there is only one way." "What is it?" Qin Ran asked curiously. Qin Xing replied, "We can only rely on eldest uncle. I will find a way to contact eldest uncle and ask small aunt about this suggestion. If eldest uncle agrees, I will try to persuade aunt. Maybe this is the best choice." Qin Ran sighed and said, "Then we can only do this for now." Zhao Anji was really angry this time. Because of the Zhu family's intervention, Zhao Anji directly left the villa with Qin Jing the next day and lived in the Qin family's house in Diaoyutai No. 1. She directly and indirectly refused to contact Qin Xing and Qin Ran, which made Qin Xing and Qin Ran feel somewhat helpless. Qin Xing was trying to find a way to contact eldest uncle. He definitely didn't have time to go to Wutai Mountain in person, but he could do it for the He family. The He family originally had spies in Wutai Mountain. However, what Qin Xing needed to do next was how to be a qualified playboy without crossing the line. It seemed that he was not good at this kind of thing because his character had always been relatively calm and low-key. But others could do it. He was not short of rich playboys he knew, such as Xia Ding. Therefore, as soon as Qin Xing made a phone call, Xia Ding directly put down everything and rushed from Shanghai to Beijing. By the way, he also tricked Yu Kefi from Nanjing to come here. Together with Chao Yufeng, who was originally in Beijing, the 4 people from the university dormitory finally gathered in Beijing again. What the Qin family lacked the most was not connections, but money. Therefore, if one wanted to be a qualified playboy, he had to spend as much money as possible. Qin Xing handed this matter over to Brother Wu. Chang Baji and Ba He were obviously not suitable. Brother Wu was originally a rich second generation. It was reasonable for him to arrange these matters. Therefore, when Xia Ding and Yu Kefi arrived in Beijing, Qin Xing directly sent 3 Rolls-Royces to pick them up. Xia Ding and Yu Kefi were a little confused. It was not that they hadn't seen such a scene, and they had seen it a lot in that environment. It was just that this was not Qin Xing's character. Even after Qin Xing made a counterattack, he had never been so high-profile. Xia Ding and Yukefi looked at each other and were a little confused. But they didn't know that the more exciting thing was still to come. The accommodation that Qin Sheng arranged for them was not a hotel. Instead, he booked a very expensive sihiyuan. This sihiyuan was originally a high-end building and was never open to the public. It was only reserved for some special clients, almost all of whom were high-ranking officials and nobles in Beijing. When Xia Ding and Yukefi arrived here, Qin Sheng and Chao Yufeng were already waiting inside. At the gate of the sihiyuan, there were 4 supercars worth tens of millions of yuan. When they entered, they found that in addition to Qin Sheng and Chao Yufeng, there were 10 beautiful women with different temperaments inside. This time, Xia Ding and Yukefi were even more confused. What was going on? Chapter 835 Was not easy. Qin Sheng, who had always been low-key since he was a child, did not like to be a playboy. Maybe it was because of his grandfather's words and deeds when he was a child. Otherwise, Qin Sheng, who had stayed in Beijing, might have become a playboy today. With the power of the Qin family over the years, Qin Sheng might be a little famous in Siju City. If Qin Sheng liked to be a playboy, he could have been one when he was in Xi'an. Xi'an was not like old Beijing, where the water was deep and the water was deep. At that time, people with assets of hundreds of millions of yuan in Xi'an were already big shot. The Lin family had this capital. Lin Shi also attached great importance to Qin Sheng and had been training him as a successor. However, Qin Sheng's character made him unable to be a playboy. After that, Qin Sheng experienced a lot of things. When he returned to the Qin family, even though the Qin family was rich and had a strong background, Qin Sheng still could not be a playboy. The Qin family did not need such a role, and Qin Sheng would not become such a role. But now, Qin Sheng had to do this. Only in this way could he numb others. He had to act very well, making people feel that an excellent young man had completely fallen after experiencing an accident. Everything was for outsiders to see, but Qin Sheng still had to stick to the bottom line. At this moment, in the sihiyuan, the garden full of spring could not be closed. This hot summer made every beauty dress very sexy and charming. Brother Wu was absolutely reliable. These were all his arrangements. After all, he had been in Siju City for several years. Big brother, this is? Xia Ding could not help but ask. Now he had changed his mind. He had a girlfriend who was well matched and liked each other, and they were ready to get married. Naturally, he began to go to such occasions gradually. If it was in the past, this would be his favorite atmosphere. Yukefi looked at Chao Yufeng and asked him what was going on with his eyes. This was not the big brother's style. Chao Yufeng shook his head helplessly. He had just arrived. If he had known this, he would not have been so confused. Chao Yufeng dared not say that he was henpecked, but he seldom had any contact with women except for friends and colleagues. After all, they were in different positions, and these things were very taboo. Moreover, his girlfriend was a jealous person, and her family condition was better than his, so he dared not do this. Qin Sheng said casually, "Nothing. I just felt that it was boring for us to eat together, so I found a few beautiful women to accompany you." Yukefi was a little embarrassed as he said, "Boss, you know I don't like these things. Just give them to third brother. He likes them." "Good my ass. I've already turned over a new leaf. I'm a decent citizen now." Xia Ding quickly denied it. Qin Sheng said angrily, "Come on, can you stop pretending? I know your character very well. Don't be long-winded. Let's go in and have dinner first. Let's get drunk tonight." This sihiyuan was not inferior to the sihiyuan of the He family. It was just that it was too exquisite and luxurious and lacked the human touch. There were only 4 suites in the sihiyuan, plus a kitchen and a dining room, which were taken care of by a special team. Qin Sheng booked it through his sister's connections. Otherwise, the other party would not have given him face. Those beautiful women in the yard were already waiting. As for how they came here, Qin Shing did not bother to ask. He trusted Brother Wu. It was not difficult to find a few beautiful women in such a big city of Beijing. Moreover, money could make the world go round. After Xia Ding and Yu Kefi put their luggage in the room, they came to the dining room. The dining room was on the second floor, with 2 private rooms and a Western restaurant. The large private room was enough for them to sit down. The large floor-to-ceiling windows on the left could just see the Forbidden City in the evening. The scenery was panoramic. Each of them was surrounded by 2 or 3 beautiful women. They seemed to be college students. They were all good-looking. They did not have plastic surgery. Brother Wu must have done a lot of work. Qin Shing had been familiar with them for a long time. Before Yu Kefi came, he had been chatting with them. The 2 beautiful women beside him were both top students. One was from Peking University, and the other was from the Chinese Academy of Drama. They were probably both campus belle. As for why they came here, Qin Shing did not know. Chow Yufeng was a little uncomfortable. He was afraid that his girlfriend had known about it. After all, this was Beijing. Yu Kefi did not feel strange. He often experienced such occasions. As for Xia Ding, he was like a fish in water. Although he said no, this playboy had already started chatting with the 2 beautiful women. Seeing Chow Yufeng's embarrassed look, Xia Ding could not help but make fun of him. "Second brother, don't be so restrained. We won't take a video for sister-in-law." Ha 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 ha. Chow Yufeng stared at Xia Ding. The 2 beautiful women beside him also covered their mouth. But they were still flirting with Chow Yufeng, which made him very uncomfortable. "Boss, can you tell us now? What on earth is going on?" Yu Kefi asked curiously. Qin Shing said with a smile, "Nothing. I just miss you. The 4 of us haven't been together for a long time. So I tricked you into coming to Beijing. This time, you can stay for a few more days. Put down all your work and have fun for a few days." In fact, the 3 of them had already heard about what had happened to the Qin family. So after Qin Shing made the call, they immediately rushed to Beijing. However, it seemed that Qin Shing was fine. Neither did anything serious happen to the Qin family. Consequently, the 3 of them were somewhat confused. Chow Yufeng was in Siju City. Although his family was nothing compared to Qin Shing's status, his girlfriend's family had some background, so she knew something. Yu Kefi and Xia Ding's families were also well known in Jiangsu and Zhejiang, especially Yu Kefi's family. Needless to say, they naturally heard a lot of rumors. Now, the rumors outside were spreading very fast. Some even said that Master Qin had been taken away for investigation. Consequently, they did not know what had happened on Earth. Is it really okay? Yu Kefi still did not believe it. He and Xia Ding had talked about this problem before, but they had never asked Qin Shing directly. Xia Ding stopped Yu Kefi and said, "Lao Si, you are so annoying. This time, we are out to have fun. Let's have fun and drink." Xia Ding knew Qin Shing better. He was very clear that if Qin Shing was not willing to say anything, no matter how much they asked, they would not get any result. Since Qin Shing was not willing to say anything, he must have something that he could not say. So they did not ask. Chow Yufeng also came to his senses and said happily, "Let's drink. We have not drunk yet. Let's not go home until we are drunk tonight." "That's right. Let's drink. After the first round, let's drink the second round. After the second round, let's go." Xia Ding echoed. Qin Shing finally took a breath. Otherwise, if Yu Kefi continued to ask like this, he really did not know how to deal with it. Fortunately, the others helped him out, so they did not talk nonsense anymore. Today, they just drank, chatted, and talked about the old days. With so many beautiful women around, and after a few glasses of wine, the atmosphere was naturally very lively, including the booing of those beautiful women. Fortunately, the 2 beautiful women beside Qin Shing were relatively quiet. Occasionally, they would lower their heads and chat with Qin Shing. But they would stop talking at the right time. It seemed that Brother Wu had put in a lot of effort. However, whether it was Qin Sheng or Xia Ding and the others, they were not the kind of people who would act recklessly when they were drunk. Moreover, these beautiful women were not dubious characters. Everyone also kept the bottom line and did not cross the line. They did not even hug each other, let alone kiss some beautiful women who took the initiative to kick up a fuss, but they were all rejected by them. Before the dinner was over, they had already talked about going to the bar. Qin Sheng had already arranged it. However, Chow Yufeng and Yu Kefi both thought that it would be too noisy if they took too many people. So they took one beautiful woman with them, while Qin Sheng and Xia Ding took two each. They went straight to the most popular nightclub in the workers' sports complex at present. As for the other beautiful women, they were sent back by Brother Wu. Everything had been arranged by Qin Sheng. He had already booked the biggest booth, 2 sports cars and 3 Rolls-Royces. Such a big battle was rare even in the workers' sports complex, which was not short of rich people. So when they got out of the car, they instantly became the focus of the passers-by. Chow Yufeng deliberately lowered his head, for fear of being seen by others. Otherwise, he would be in trouble when he went home. Tonight, he accompanied his brothers to be presumptuous. He had already prepared for the worst. After entering the bar, the booth had been filled with champagne. Each bottle of wine was worth tens of thousands of yuan. It seemed that Qin Sheng wanted to spend money tonight. If he did not spend millions of yuan tonight, it seemed that he would feel sorry for this show. After sitting down, he did not talk nonsense and just started drinking. Qin Sheng did not care whether he would meet any acquaintances. It would be better if he met them. Originally, he was putting on a show for others, so he drank without restraint. He did not know whether it was a fake show to vent his emotions or something else. After sitting down, they just accompanied Qin Sheng to be presumptuous, and did not ask anything anymore. There must be something wrong when something abnormal happened. Qin Sheng, who had never been like this, actually did such a high-profile thing. Obviously, something really happened to the Qin family. They could not do anything to help, so they could only accompany Qin Sheng to vent his anger. Qin Sheng was already a little drunk. Fortunately, the 2 beauties beside him helped him to drink a lot. However, one of them seemed to be very disgusted with this kind of occasion, while the other one was trying her best to take care of Qin Sheng. Maybe someone who asked them to come here secretly leaked some information about Qin Sheng's identity, so they behaved like this. Not everyone could make them put down their pride. Finally, Qin Sheng could not bear it anymore. When he went to the toilet, he vomited heavily. He had not drunk like this for a long time. Suddenly, he drank so much. Who could stand it? When Qin Sheng washed his face and came out, the campus belle of Peking University was already waiting at the door. She was very considerate and handed Qin Sheng a tissue. Qin Sheng said casually, "Thank you." The beauty just smiled gently. After that, she helped Qin Sheng to go back to the booth. However, Qin Sheng said, "I want to go out for some fresh air." Therefore, the beauty accompanied Qin Sheng to go out for some fresh air. Qin Sheng tried his best to protect her. After all, there were all kinds of people here. Moreover, they were all drunk. It was inevitable that some men would want to take advantage of them. Fortunately, there were people protecting Qin Sheng in front and behind him. They tried their best to prevent others from approaching. As for Xia Ding and the rest, Qin Sheng asked Brother Wu to go over and inform them. He went out to make a call. After walking out of the bar, Qin Sheng randomly found a corner and squatted on the ground. He smoked silently. The campus belle of Peking University was standing in front of him. Qin Sheng could only see her high-heeled sandals and her exposed calves. Her curves were exquisite and slender. However, Qin Sheng was thinking about other things. This campus belle of Peking University, named Ji Min, was indeed very beautiful. Her temperament was even more pure. In this night of debauchery, her slightly tipsy appearance was even more unique. Compared to that flower vase who thought too much about acting, she, who came from Peking University, naturally had a higher IQ. Therefore, she had been observing Qin Sheng's every move the whole night and seemed to be enjoying it. Ji Min smoothed her hair and slightly bent over to ask, "You rarely come to such a place, right?" Qin Sheng replied without raising his head, "Why? Are you very interested in me?" "How did you know?" Ji Min did not hide it. Her intuition was very strong. This man in front of her was definitely not a nouveau riche or a prodigal. She could tell from his temperament and gaze. Therefore, she would take care of him like this. Otherwise, she would just treat it as helping a friend and going through the motions. Qin Sheng rejected her directly. "Don't be interested in me. Otherwise, you will only get hurt." "Really?" Ji Min covered her mouth and smiled. It seemed that she really wanted to try. Just as Qin Sheng was about to say something, his stomach turned upside down and he vomited again. He almost vomited on Ji Min's feet. Ji Min had no choice but to take care of him immediately. It was not easy to be a rich playboy. It was even more difficult to act. Chapter 836. How could she not know? There were many clever women, but there were not many women with great wisdom. Ji Min was ambiguous. She might belong to the latter in the future, but she was still too young. After all, she was admitted to Peking University and could integrate into a circle. How could she not be smart? The friend who asked her for help was not simple. She also owed that friend a favor. So this time she came out with the mentality that as long as the other party was not too excessive, she could tolerate it. She just needed to return the favor. Fortunately, the result was better than she had imagined. This man did not do anything excessive from beginning to end. At most, he hugged her to a certain extent. His speech and behavior were just the right amount of respect for her. To her surprise, she became more and more interested in this man after getting along with him. First of all, this man's identity could make that friend pay so much attention to him. Secondly, this man was so ostentatious. Needless to say, this man looked good and had a good temperament. The most curious thing was that this man had a lot of contradictions. How could Ji Min, who was born as a talented woman of Peking University, not be interested? Originally, Qin Sheng was making fun of Ji Min. Who knew that this woman was really interested in him? Qin Sheng could only block this way in a hurry. This was not the first time that she had said such words. After all, there were not many young talents like him who were young, rich, and had a strong background. Which woman would not be tempted? What's more, Qin Sheng's luck with women was prosperous. His grandfather said that he owed the most love debts in his life. Therefore, Qin Sheng did not want to get involved in these causes and effects, nor did he want to hurt the girl's heart. He did not want to make himself feel guilty, so he just blocked it directly. Before vomiting, Qin Sheng almost sighed with emotion that it was not his fault that he was handsome. Who knew that before he said this, he had already vomited? After Qin Sheng vomited again, he was ready to go back, otherwise Xia Ding and others might worry. Ji Min was very careful to support Qin Sheng, but she was also thinking about something in her heart. Although the man did not finish his words just now, she could not help but think more. Back to the booth, Xia Ding and others were also waiting for Qin Sheng. At this time, everyone was resting. After all, they really drank a lot tonight. Even Qin Sheng vomited. Others were almost the same. After seeing Qin Sheng coming back, Yu Kefi quickly asked, "Boss, are you okay?" Qin Sheng said disapprovingly, it's okay. Keep drinking. Don't waste so much wine." At this moment, Zhou Qi, another aloof beauty from the Chinese opera school who had not drunk much tonight, took the initiative to drink for Qin Sheng. To be honest, Zhou Qi was prettier than Ji Min. Her facial features were especially exquisite, not to mention her figure. Otherwise, how could she have gone to the Chinese opera school? However, compared to Jimin, her temperament was too tacky. Perhaps it was because they were in a different circle. Jimin was smart but not scheming, while Zhou Qi was smart but scheming. She seemed to loathe people like Qin Sheng. Maybe she had been to such occasions many times, but she knew how to hide herself and kept a distance from Qin Sheng and the others. Qin Sheng did not know why she had come, but he was too lazy to guess too much. It was already a little late, and everyone was almost done drinking, so they were ready to go back to the Sihiyuan Hotel. On the way back, Qin Sheng sat alone in a car, with two beautiful women sitting on both sides of Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng really drank too much, and he was too lazy to avoid too much. He directly leaned on Ji Min's body and fell asleep. Ji Min frowned slightly, but she was a little happy in her heart. Women's minds were really hard to guess. When they came out of the bar, a group of people happened to pass by not far away. Qin Sheng's side was so ostentatious, who would not take a few more glances? So after a few glances, these people immediately recognized Qin Sheng. Tut, 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 at this time, first young Master Qin still has the leisure to pick up girls, right? A playboy who had a conflict with Qin Sheng before joke. The 3 men and 4 women had just finished eating and were ready to come over for the second game. Although it was already 1 o'clock for them, 1 o'clock was the most lively time. The playboy's friend next to him said happily, "What can he do about such a big thing? This time the Qin family is really ruined. Everyone is waiting to see the Qin family become a joke. Many people are also waiting to hit them when they are down. If they don't keep a low profile, they may be trampled under their feet. What does it have to do with us? We are just watching the fun. I guess many people will take action soon. After all, first young Master Qin has a good reputation." The playboy laughed out loud, as if he wanted to see Qin Sheng being trampled on. The other people echoed, "Then let's wait and see." Some time ago, Qin Sheng had deliberately kept a low profile. Now, he did not choose to keep a low profile anymore. The reason he did these things was to let others know, even if he was misunderstood by some people. Qin Sheng had planned to go back to the Sihiyuan of the Qin family tonight. However, in the end, he chose to stay with Xia Ding and Yu Kefi. Chow Yufeng went home directly. He did not dare to stay out at night. After arriving at the entrance of the hotel, Ji Min and Zhou Qi helped Qin Sheng into the room. It was not until Qin Sheng lay on the bed that they were about to say goodbye and leave. At this time, Zhou Qi, the beauty of the Chinese opera school, stopped. After a long struggle in her mind, she finally made a decision. She gritted her teeth and said, "Master Qin, let me take care of you tonight." When Zhou Qi said this, Ji Min was stunned. It did not occur to her that the aloof Zhou Qi would say such a thing. She could not even take the initiative to offer herself to Qin Sheng. At most, she could only let Qin Sheng hug her. If he crossed the line again, she would probably be angry. Qin Sheng was also very surprised. However, he immediately understood. He chuckled and sat up. He looked Zhou Qi up and down. She was indeed a beauty. However, it was a pity that she had met Lu Xiaohui, who was like him. Qin Sheng did not mock her. Everyone had their own choices and difficulties. There was no need to be too harsh. He looked at Ji Min and Zhou Qi and said to Zhou Qi first, "You are not as smart as her." Zhou Qi looked confused. She did not understand what Qin Sheng meant. She looked back at Ji Min, who was not far away. She thought that she had more advantages than Ji Min. If Qin Sheng had a choice, he would probably choose her. Who knew that Qin Sheng would say such a thing? However, Qin Sheng said to Ji Min immediately, "You are not as smart as her." This time, it was Ji Min's turn to be confused. "I did not do anything. What did he mean?" However, Ji Min was a person who knew how to think. She immediately began to think about what she had done wrong tonight. "Okay, it's late. Go back." Qin Sheng did not want to explain anything and directly asked them to leave. Brother Wu, who had been guarding at the door, immediately came in. He looked at Ji Min and Zhou Qi rudely and took them away directly. Qin Shing might have tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex, but his subordinates would not. They really did not know who they were and dared to do anything. After the two beauties left, Qin Shing instantly felt a lot more relaxed. It was not easy to deal with these two beauties. After washing up, he went back to the yard and asked someone to call Xia Ding and Yu Kefi out. Although they had drunk a lot of wine, they still kept sober. Before Qin Shing came back, he had already asked people to prepare supper. There was nothing much, just a few bowls of porridge and some barbecue. After tossing around for most of the night, they were probably hungry. When Xia Ding and Yu Kefi came out, Qin Shing joked, "Why didn't you leave a beauty to sleep with you? Or you don't like her?" The taste of the two young masters is getting more and more picky. After Xia Ding sat down, he replied, "Boss, don't tease me. We usually play, but now we are going to get married. You'd better calm down and do some good for yourself." "That's you." "I don't usually play," Yu Kefi retorted. Speaking of marriage, Yu Kefi was going to get married next month. Originally, he was going to get married in May. However, the two families had more things to do, so they could only put it off until August. Now everything that should be prepared was ready. He had also informed his brothers that Xia Ding was one of his best men. "Don't talk nonsense. Eat something." Qin Shing shook his head and smiled bitterly. After eating supper, it was already late at night in Siju City. The sky of the Sihiyuan still could not see any stars. Fortunately, there was a little breeze, so it was not so hot and irritating. The three brothers were not in a hurry to go back to rest, so they sat in silence. Yu Kefi couldn't help but ask again, "Boss, tell me, what's wrong?" "Just acting." Qin Shing did not deny it this time and replied truthfully. Yu Kefi and Xia Ding looked at each other. Xia Ding frowned and said, "Acting? For whom?" "For those who want to see," Qin Shing said in a deep voice. Yu Kefi asked, "What's wrong?" Qin Shing said calmly, "Maybe you have heard a lot of rumors, which are spreading everywhere outside. I can tell you now that these are all true. Something happened to the Qin family." Now he could face these things calmly. What else could he do if he didn't face them? Qin Shing thought to himself. When Qin Shing said that these were all true, Yu Kefi and Xia Ding did not come to their senses for a long time. Although they had already guessed this possibility, it was inevitable that they would be a little shocked when they really knew the truth. "Master Qin was arrested?" Xia Ding asked cautiously. In fact, when Qin Shing returned to Beijing in a hurry and did not return to Shanghai for such a long time, Xia Ding had guessed this possibility. Otherwise, why did Qin Shing suddenly return to Beijing, and why did the rumors suddenly spread outside? Qin Shing did not answer, but nodded in silence. Yu Kefi gritted his teeth and said, "Boss, what can we help you with?" "Ha ha ha, thank you. If you can really help me, how can I not ask for help?" Qin Shing said with a smile, "Let's not talk about this. If you really want to help me, you can accompany me to put on a good show this time. Just stay for a few more days." What could Xia Ding and Yu Kefi say? Just as Qin Shing had said, even if they really wanted to help, what could they do? After chatting for a while, everyone was also tired, so they went back to their rooms to rest. They would continue to have fun tomorrow. Anyway, Qin Shing had let go of everything and let the situation develop. He wanted to see how long the Zhu family would let him wait. In the morning, when Qin Shing, Xia Ding and Yu Kefi had breakfast, several beauties yesterday had arrived, but only one of Xia Ding and Yu Kefi stayed, while Qin Shing still had two, Jimin, the campus belle of Peking University, and Zhou Qi, the vase of Chinese opera. In the following week, Qin Shing, Xia Ding, Yu Kefi, and several beauties had fun. They played whatever was fun. Anyway, they were not short of money. They almost had fun every night. Chow Yufeng came occasionally. After all, he was not as free as others. Qin Shing was so high profile, how could those people not know? Chapter 837. He had never returned to the villa in Shishan. Qin Ran occasionally went to the company during this period, but most of the time she was meeting with friends or relaxing. The day before yesterday she even went to Binhai, Tianjin for 2 days. It seemed that she had completely ignored the affairs of the Qin family. The unusual behavior of the siblings surprised many people, including their friends. Only Zhao Anji was still busy, which made people feel a little sad. However, the final result was somewhat unsatisfactory. There was still no progress. The only progress was in the Chang'an faction. She had stopped Sixth Uncle from further expanding his power. But this did not satisfy Zhao Anji. She began to reflect. Should it really be like what the Zhu family said? After Zhao Anji left the West Mountain Villa with her daughter, she didn't contact Qin Ran and Qin Xing during this time, let alone see them. But she knew what they were doing, which showed that they agreed with the Zhu family and chose another way. Zhao Anji was more or less disappointed about this. When Zhao Anji was hesitating, she received an unexpected call that she hadn't heard for a long time. After so many years, since she became a monk in Wutai Mountain, she had never taken the initiative to call her, let alone look for her. Most of the time, she occasionally went to see her when she returned to China. Zhao Anji was full of hatred for her. No matter what happened to the Qin family in the future, it would still not change her hatred. In the long corridor of the temple where Qin Changxing hid in Wutai Mountain, he could overlook most of the temples on Wutai Mountain. The scenery was very pleasant. Today's weather was also good, not so sultry. Qin Changxing thought for a long time and took the initiative to make the call. The first thing he considered was whether it was appropriate for the current situation of the Qin family, as the Zhu family said. He had to think about this carefully. He couldn't agree just because of what Qin Xing said. He had to review it himself and weigh all the pros and cons before making a decision. Since it was clear that his Buddha's heart was in chaos, and it was impossible for him to meditate and completely separate himself from the secular world, he would enter the secular world again to cut off all the karma. So he had already begun to plan for the future of the Qin family. Second, he had to consider how to make this call to Zhao Anji, and whether it was appropriate to make this call. After all, he owed Zhao Anji too much over the years. He would always feel guilty when he was with Zhao Anji. He didn't want to disturb Zhao Anji's life. "Anji, it's me," Qin Changxing said guiltily after the call went through. On the other side, Zhao Anji, who had been very tired recently, saw that it was an unfamiliar number. She didn't want to answer it at first, but she was afraid that she would miss an important call, so she picked up the call. Who knew it would be that familiar voice? Qin Changxing? Zhao Anji fell silent. Why did he suddenly call her? It had been so many years, and she hadn't seen him call once. It must be about the Qin family. "It's you," Zhao Anji said coldly. Qin Changxing was not surprised by Zhao Anji's coldness. He replied, "Have you worked hard?" "You've worked hard? What does this have to do with you? If you have anything to say, just say it. If not, I'll hang up. There's no need for small talk between us," Zhao Anji said very impolitely. The person she hated the most was Qin Changxing. Not to mention seeing him, even hearing his voice was enough for her. Over there, sitting on the bench, Qin Changxing smiled helplessly. He wasn't angry at all. Instead, he felt more guilty. All these years, he had really let down this mother and daughter pair. Anyone would hate him, but he also had his own troubles that he couldn't talk about. "How is Yaya?" Qin Changxing asked softly. Thinking of this daughter, Qin Changxing's mood was even more complicated and contradictory. He might not even have the courage to face his daughter. Since she was born, he hadn't seen her once, let alone taken care of her. Zhao Anji's answer was still very strong. She said angrily, "Qin Changxing, you're not qualified to ask her. If you have something to say, just say it. Don't challenge my patience. I've already saved you a lot of face." Qin Changxing wanted to chat for a while before talking about business. This could also ease the atmosphere. Who knew that Zhao Anji wouldn't give him a chance at all? He could only sigh and say, "In that case, then I'll talk about business. If you have something to say, just say it." Zhao Anji replied angrily. At this time, Yaya ran into the study and asked her to eat. Zhao Anji quickly covered the phone and said that she would be down immediately. Seeing that Yaya's smile had gradually disappeared these days, Zhao Anji was in a bad mood. She began to regret returning to China. If she had stayed in Canada and stayed away from these things, it might have been the best choice. Diaoyutai Courtyard No. 7 was also a famous mansion in Siju City. The Qin family's flat was 400 square meters. Qin Chang'an occasionally lived here. Compared to the Sihiyuan in Dongqing district, the environment here might be better. It was next to Yuantan Park, and the scenery was panoramic. Whether it was the geographical location or the surrounding environment, they were all excellent. At this time, Zhao Anji was in Qin Chang'an's study. The large floor-to-ceiling window of the study faced Yuantan Park, overlooking the park. Such a scenery made people feel a little relaxed. After Yaya went out, Zhao Anji said again, "Say it." Qin Changxing, who was on the other side, also heard Yaya's voice. He suppressed his excitement. Although he really wanted to see Yaya, he could not bring himself to do so. He really did not know what kind of scene it would be if the father and daughter met one day. Was it Yaya just now? Qin Changxing couldn't help asking. It could be said that he had no desires in this life. If there was a weakness, it would be Yaya. Even Zhao Anji couldn't be counted as his weakness. It could be seen how strong Qin Changxing's heart was. Zhao Anji said coldly, "Say it." Qin Changxing shook his head helplessly. He put away his emotions and had to say seriously, "Anji Xing called me." "What? You want to persuade me? Do you think I'll listen to you?" Zhao Anji said very disdainfully. Both of them had been to Mount Wutai, so Qin Changxing naturally knew what had happened to the Qin family. It turned out that Xing wanted him, her eldest uncle, to persuade her. Qin Changxing didn't make a long speech. He said honestly, "I won't say anything to persuade you, because I've reviewed and weighed it again. If it's really as I think the Zhu family's suggestion is the most correct. At this time, the Qin family should stay away from this storm. When everything comes to light, we will act according to the circumstances." "What? Are you going to abandon your brother, the Qin family's property, or both?" Zhao Anji said sarcastically. Qin Changxing didn't want to refute her. He said in a low voice, "Chang'an knows better than anyone what kind of environment he is in, what is the worst result for him, and what is the best result for him. As for the so-called property of the Qin family, it's nothing." Zhao Anji didn't take Qin Changxing's words seriously at all. She snorted and said, "Haha, you hide in Mount Wutai like a turtle. It's easy to talk. What qualifications do you have to comment?" Qin Changxing thought for a long time and said, "When the time is right, I will come back." After saying this, Qin Changxing directly hung up the phone. It was useless to say more. He believed that after he said these words, Zhao Anji would reconsider, because she was a very smart and wise woman. Wasn't it the best result for her to go to Canada at that time? If she had no feelings for the Qin family, how could she come back when the Qin family was in the most difficult time? The Qin family and he would always owe this woman. In the study, Zhao Anji was lost in thought on the lake in Jade Pool Park. This phone call had a great impact on her, especially Qin Changxing's last sentence, "When the time is right, I will come back." Would he really come back? She had waited for more than 20 years. Only she knew how she had survived for more than 20 years. If one were to say who hated Qin Changxing the most in this world, it would definitely be her, Zhao Anji. If one were to say who loved Qin Changxing the most in this world, it would still be her. If it were not for the fact that she deeply loved this man who used to have a promising future, how could she go to Canada to give birth to his child? How could she live in Canada alone with the child for so many years? How could she come back when the Qin family was in the most difficult time? She was the one who loved and hated the most. At this time, only love could make people so infatuated. If Qin Chongqing really came back, it would definitely be a timely help to the Qin family. In the beginning, when Qin Shing said that Qin Chongqing might come back, Zhao Anji did not take it seriously at all. She thought that it was just Qin Chongqing's excuse. However, now that Qin Chongqing said it himself, how could Zhao Anji not believe it? How could Zhao Anji not be shocked? She had never doubted Qin Chongqing's ability. This man used to have a promising future. He had conquered many big shots and made them place high hopes on him. If it were not for the storm in the Qin family back then, he might have been a governor now. This was also one of the reasons why she loved this man so deeply. This man had once fascinated many women. How could the man of the Qin family let people down? Therefore, after Zhao Anji came back to her senses, she could not help but start to think about Qin Chongqing's words, which was the Zhu family's suggestion. Since Qin Chongqing had thought about it carefully, it meant that she could trust the Zhu family. The reason why Qin Chongqing made this call was not because of Sheng or the Zhu family's lobbyist, but because he felt that this was the right thing to do. Thus, Zhao Anji decided that he would wait and see what would happen. Since she had made up her mind, Zhao Anji was not the kind of person who would hesitate. Therefore, she decided to leave Siju City and prepare to take Yaya to Changbai Mountain to avoid the summer heat. This month could be said to be exhausting, so she would take this opportunity to go out and relax. Or in other words, to wait for new problems. At a certain equestrian club at the foot of the Great Wall of Beijing, Qin Shing took Xia Dingyu to ride a horse today. Of course, there were also 4 beautiful women. Since that day, Ji Min and Zhou Qi could be said to be inseparable from him. They spent most of their time outside except at night. Qin Shing took them to have fun. Chapter 838. Racecourse Incident. When it came to horseback riding, Qin Shing dared not say that he was a professional, but he was definitely not a newbie. He had been to the Inner Mongolia grassland before and stayed in Xilingol League, which was known as the horse capital of China, for 2 months. That place was a famous horse-producing area in the north of the Great Wall. The horses there were mainly Mongolian horses and Xilingol horses, but there were also differences between white horses and black horses. West Ujimkin Banner was the home of white horses, while Abaga Banner was the home of black horses. Qin Shing had even participated in their Nadam and had seen the spectacular scene of thousands of fine horses running wildly on the grassland. He ate and slept with the herdsmen on the grassland and learned how to ride a horse on the same day. A week later, he was more skilled, like a native of Inner Mongolia. Half a month later, he began to wrestle with those grassland men. At that time, there was an old herdsman who liked him very much and wanted him to marry into their family. Unfortunately, Qin Shing left after only 2 months. In order to have fun these few days, Qin Shing had thought of everything he could do. Only then did he think of riding a horse. Beijing was a place where the rich gathered. There was no lack of professional horse farms or equestrian clubs. Many rich people even had private horse farms. Qin Shing asked his friend to recommend a relatively high-end equestrian club. That was why he brought them here. This equestrian club had 40 to 50 horses. It was not a lot, but they were all expensive horses. The club was not open to the public and was only open to members. Different levels of members could bring different numbers of companions. Qin Shing was very simple. With a wave of his hand, he registered for the 3 of them as members. It was only a membership fee of about 100,000 yuan per year. Young Master Qin was not short of money. He loved to spend money now. At this time, Xia Ding and Yu Kefi were playing with them. After getting along for a few days, they got along well. Yu Kefi and Xia Ding didn't think much about their female companions. They just treated them as friends. Besides, if they really wanted to do something, there was no shortage of women. Since Qin Sheng came down to rest, Ji Min and Zhou Qi naturally accompanied him. The clothes they wore today showed off their figures. Both of them tied their hair into ponytails, looking very youthful and beautiful. However, they did not ride for a long time. Zhou Qi was naturally afraid of these animals. As for Ji Min, she had ridden before but was not interested in them. Her biggest hobby was playing tennis. She had won an award in the past. After receiving a call from his sister, Qin Sheng went to the side to answer the phone and came back soon. This call made him quite surprised. His sister could accompany his aunt to Changbai Mountain, which meant that his aunt had nodded and agreed. It should be that his uncle had successfully persuaded his aunt. It seemed that his aunt still listened to his uncle, although the relationship between them was contradictory and complicated. Now, his aunt had taken his sister to Changbai Mountain. He continued to be a playboy. The Qin family had completely let go of the Qin family's affairs. It was estimated that everyone would be confused, but he didn't know whether the next development of the situation would be good or bad for them. Qin Sheng was not sure. Although this was the suggestion of the Zhu family, they were also gambling. If they lost the gamble, the Qin family was very likely to be wiped out. At that time, not only could the old man not be saved, but he would also be kicked out of the Chang'an school. Qin Sheng frowned and was lost in thought, which was very charming. This was the characteristic of a man who had experienced the vicissitudes of life. Unconsciously, Ji Min was a little fascinated. Zhou Qi glanced at the infatuated Ji Min and continued to drink. After that day, she was quite embarrassed to see Qin Sheng again. She didn't expect that Qin Sheng would ask her to continue to come. Her friends told her not to think too much, but not to be silly in the future. Zhou Qi was different from Ji Min. She was from the Chinese opera school and was destined to enter the entertainment circle in the future. But what was the most important in the entertainment circle? Financial backers and connections were the most important. Without these two, even if you were as beautiful as a fairy, you would not be popular, because no one would support you. These all needed resources. It was not that Zhou Qi had never met a rich nouveau riche before, but they were either nouveau riche or some emerging technology elite. They were rich and had social status, but none of them had anything to do with her. As for those swindlers, needless to say, they were all swindlers. However, Qin Sheng was different. On the second day, her friend had revealed to her that he was the real rich playboy in Siju City. Even if she could not ride on his coattails, she would still benefit a lot from being his friend. Because of this, Zhou Qi had braced herself to come the next day. Otherwise, she would have given up long ago. Master Qin, what's wrong? After Ji Min came to her senses, she was more or less embarrassed and lowered her head, for fear of being discovered. Maybe this was the way to like someone. She had not liked anyone for a long time. Qin Sheng smiled casually and said, "Nothing, why don't you ride? I'm afraid to be alone. If you accompany me, then I can try again," Ji Min deliberately said coquettishly. She was now used to the way she got along with Qin Sheng. Anyway, she liked Qin Sheng and would not hide it. Even if she did not contact him in the future, she just needed to cherish the time now. So most of the time, Ji Min deliberately teased Qin Sheng. If you were too formal with Qin Sheng, you would not be able to get close to him at all. For example, Zhou Qi, who was always formal, Qin Sheng rarely talked to her. Most of the time, he preferred to play with her. Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. "Okay, then I'll play with you for a while. You're the best." Ji Min took the initiative to hold Qin Sheng's arm and subconsciously wanted to give him a kiss. But Qin Sheng stopped her. Stop, I have a girlfriend. Don't have any ideas about me." Ji Min let out a long sigh and said, "I'm so envious. I really don't know which beauty has such a blessing. If there's a chance, I must meet her." Qin Sheng stood up and prepared to leave with Ji Min. He did not forget to turn back and said to Zhou Qi, "Are you going? Give it a try. Riding a horse is quite interesting. Don't be afraid of anything." Zhou Qi originally wanted to refuse, but it was Qin Sheng who invited her. After thinking about it again and again, she nodded and agreed. Then she left with Qin Sheng and Ji Min. On the racetrack, Yu Kefi and Xia Ding were riding horses with beautiful women. Yu Kefi and Xia Ding had learned horsemanship since childhood, and they often went to ride horses. Yu Kefi's family also had a horse farm, which raised more than a dozen famous horses at home and abroad. This was easy for him. Because Ji Min had ridden a horse, Qin Sheng did not need to teach her. At this time, he first taught Zhou Qi, who could not ride and was afraid to ride. There was a staff of the horse farm next to her to help her get familiar. She was relatively tall, and because she had been dancing since elementary school, she was relatively soft. In fact, she was quite suitable for riding. After getting familiar with her for more than half an hour, Zhou Qi finally dared to ride a horse. Qin Sheng took her for a few laps, but there was a staff next to her, so the speed was not fast. Qin Sheng had been interacting with Zhou Qi, and Ji Min was a little jealous. Until Zhou Qi was familiar with her, she coquettishly asked Qin Sheng to accompany her for 2 laps. Qin Sheng did not care, so he took Ji Min to run, and let Zhou Qi continue to get used to it. Ji Min was satisfied. Qin Sheng's skill was good, but Ji Min could only be said to be average. In order to take care of her, Qin Sheng was not fast. "How can you ride so well? You used to ride often, or did you learn it professionally? People like you should have learned horsemanship since childhood. I heard from Brother Xia and Brother Fei that they learned it when they were young." Ji Min deliberately looked for a topic. Qin Sheng shook his head and said, "I am not like them. I did not have such opportunities when I was young. But when I graduated from college, I stayed in Inner Mongolia for 2 months. That place is the horse capital of China, Xilingol League. I almost rode with the herdsmen every day. Anyone can learn it. What do you think?" Ji Min was surprised and said, "I see. No wonder your skill is so good. Riding on the grassland is different from riding here. That is the real riding. The sky is high and the clouds are wide, and the horse is running wildly. If there is a chance, you can go there and have a look," Qin Sheng said with a smile. The long-lost feeling made him a little nostalgic. Ji Min chuckled and said, "You can also try it here. I really want to see it. It should be very handsome, right?" Qin Sheng thought for a moment. There were not many people here today. It should be okay to ride a little faster. He was about to speed up subconsciously. Who knew that the movement on the side of the stable attracted him? It seemed that 2 groups of people had a dispute, and the sound was a little loud. Qin Sheng did not want to take care of it, but who knew that Xia Ding and Yu Kefi were also there? He could not help but be a little worried, so he hurried over with Ji Min. At the side of the stable, the 2 groups of people had already quarreled. The staff was persuading them, but it seemed that it did not work at all. One of the beauties was slapped, and even the staff was kicked twice. It could be seen that it was more or less troublesome. One of the beauties who was slapped was none other than Zhou Qi, who was about to take a rest. The matter was very simple. When the horse trainer brought her over, there was a beauty riding a horse a little fast next to her, which startled Zhou Qi's horse. The 2 horses almost collided with each other. The beauty was also shocked and almost fell off the horse, so she was quite angry. After getting off the horse, she directly found trouble with Zhou Qi. Zhou Qi did not know who was right and who was wrong, but she took the initiative to apologize first. Who knew that the beauty would not let it go and said that it would be over after an apology. Zhou Qi said casually, "Then what do you want to do?" Who knew that the beauty suddenly lost her temper and directly slapped Zhou Qi in the face, which made Zhou Qi turn pale with fright. She did not expect that it would be so sudden. Big tears flowed down in an instant, so she pulled the beauty and did not let her leave. Not to mention that Zhou Qi was angry, Even the horse trainer could not stand it anymore. He asked the beauty why she hit people. Who knew that the beauty directly kicked Ma Sure away and scolded, "Who do you think you are? How dare you control me? Believe it or not, I will make you leave immediately." After seeing the quarrel here, Xia Ding and Yu Kefi, who were not far away, immediately rushed over. After listening to the whole process, they naturally wanted to stand up for Zhou Qi and let the beauty apologize to Zhou Qi. Otherwise, today's matter would not be over. This very arrogant beauty did not put Yu Kefi and Xia Ding in her eyes at all. It was impossible for her to apologize and admit her mistake. If they wanted to make trouble, she would accompany them at any time. Maybe the noise here was too big. Several friends of the beauty also rushed over. Without asking what was going on, they directly confronted Yu Kefi and Xia Ding. The scene was somewhat out of control, and Qin Sheng also found it. Chapter 839. Most of the members of this equestrian club were either rich or noble, but this was Siju City. There were too many rich people and too many powerful people. Naturally, there were a lot of people with backgrounds. However, this beauty could be so domineering in such a place. She did not care about the background of Xia Ding and Yu Kufei. She did not give them any face at all. She was so confident. It could be seen that she was not an ordinary character. Yu Kufei and Xia Ding did not believe that she did not know what this place was. Xia Ding and Yu Kefi had never seen or known this group of people. After all, they were not in the circle of Siju City. If it was in Jiangsu, Zhejiang and Shanghai, the probability of knowing acquaintances might be higher. But the other party was so domineering. How could Xia Ding and Yu Kefi not be angry? Besides, they had figured out what was going on. It was not a big deal. This beauty was wrong first, and Zhou Qi took the lead to apologize. They just smiled at each other. Who knew that this beauty was so domineering? Not only did she not apologize, but she also slapped Zhou Qi directly, which was a bit too much. Xia Ding and Yu Kefi did not want to stand up for Zhou Qi. This was not their territory, and they did not want to make trouble. Besides, they were not familiar with Zhou Qi, so there was no need to get involved in trouble. They just wanted to seek justice for Zhou Qi, as long as this beauty apologized and admitted her mistake. Who knew that the other party not only did not apologize, but also was so arrogant, so they were in a deadlock. Beauty, this is a bit too much. Nothing happened. What do you mean by this slap? Xia Ding said in a bad tone. The beauty was wearing a standard equestrian suit. Her figure looked good, and she seemed to be a little taller than Zhou Qi. She said very disdainfully, "Well, I slapped her. What do you want? No, you can also call the police. We don't mean anything else, and we don't want to make trouble. As long as you apologize, this matter will be over. How about it?" Xia Ding restrained his temper. If this was in Shanghai, he might make trouble. Unfortunately, this was Siju City. He did not have this confidence, nor did he want to offend anyone. The beauty did not speak, but one of the men among her companions who rushed over said coldly, "Apologize? You want us to apologize? Who the F***ck are you? If you want to make trouble, we will accompany you at any time. As for the consequences, you are responsible for it." This guy looked a little burly, and his explosive muscles almost tore his short sleeves. Obviously, he didn't put Xia Ding and Yu Kefi in his eyes at all. Later, another man with glasses casually glanced at Zhou Qi, Yu Kefi and Xia Ding's female companions, and sneered, "What kind of people are you? Since when can anyone come here?" Yu Kefi had a good temper, but this group of people was so arrogant that he couldn't restrain himself. "Who the hell are you scolding? So what if I scold you? Do you want to fight?" The burly man rushed directly over and shouted at Yu Kefi. Yu Kefi looked a little thin and petite in front of him. They were not at the same level at all, so he did not take Yu Kefi seriously. The atmosphere was tense, and the two sides were about to fight. Zhou Qi just covered her face and hid behind Xia Ding and Yu Kefi. She didn't expect such an accident to happen today. She, who had never suffered any losses since she was a child, was slapped by others. There was a clear handprint on her face, and half of her face was now swollen. This made her cry in a low voice. The other party was obviously not an ordinary person. She did not dare to say anything, for fear that things would get out of hand. Of course, she hoped that Xia Ding and Yu Kefi could vent her anger for her, but why would they do so? Therefore, Zhou Qi seemed to have already known the result of today. She could only accept this loss and take it as her own bad luck. As for Xia Ding and Yu Kefi's female companion, Yu Kefi's female companion was comforting Zhou Qi in a low voice, and Xia Ding's female companion seemed to be a little smart. She quietly left the crowd to find Qin Sheng. After these days of contact, she was very clear that Qin Sheng had the strongest background among these people, because Xia Ding and Yu Kefi were all foreigners, while Qin Sheng was a local. If Qin Sheng was here, maybe things would not be like this. At this time, Xia Ding pulled Yu Kefi and said, "Why fight? We are reasonable people. Let's talk about the matter as it stands. Just apologize." "But what if we don't apologize?" The man with glasses chuckled. Xia Ding took a step back and said, "Oh, you don't look like ordinary people. I guess you are also famous people in our Siju city. You don't have to do this for such a small thing. Can't you have a little tolerance? Bullying a little girl is nothing, right? Let's all take a step back, okay? Who do you think you are? Do you think you can take a step back just like that?" The strong man looked directly at Xia Ding and scolded. This was already very disrespectful to Xia Ding. Xia Ding could still speak so politely, which showed that Xia Ding had really matured in these years. If it was in the past, they would have already fought. Xia Ding was still restraining himself. He replied, "Buddy, you are not very good. Are all the rich playboys in Siju City like this?" The staff did not dare to persuade them at this time. They were all scattered around. Everyone knew that the members here were not simple. When the city gate was in trouble, the fish in the moat would be in trouble. They were all ordinary people. How could they afford to provoke these people? I say, you are like a woman. If you want to fight or make trouble, just be direct. If you don't want to, get out of here quickly. I don't have time to play with you. The strong man's patience had been exhausted, and he directly opened his mouth to scold. Xia Ding was already very angry, but he was somewhat in a dilemma. If he made trouble, it might be a big deal. At that time, some things would have to be cleaned up by the boss. But the Qin family was in such a situation now. Xia Ding really did not want to cause trouble for Qin Sheng. Yu Kefi seemed to have no time to care about anything at this time. He really wanted to directly teach this arrogant strong man a lesson and give him 2 big slaps to teach him how to behave. But his concerns were similar to Xia Ding's. He did not want to cause trouble for the boss. If the other party was still so aggressive, Yu Kefi would not care about anything. At worst, he would let the old man come to Beijing to clean up the mess. At this time, Qin Sheng finally rushed over. He quietly pulled Yu Kefi behind him, looked at the opposite side and said, "Is it so difficult to apologize for doing something wrong? When you go out, don't lose the face of the elders in your family. Siju City is so small. Do you really think that anyone can step on it?" Yu Kefi thought it was someone else. When he saw it was Qin Sheng, he finally had some confidence in his heart. It seemed that since he went to college, no matter what he did, as long as Qin Sheng was around, he was not afraid of anything. Seeing Qin Sheng coming, Xia Ding also breathed a long sigh of relief and hurriedly shouted, "Boss." Zhou Qi, whose makeup had been ruined by crying, looked at Qin Sheng with grievance. It was really distressing. After all, she was a beautiful woman. Such a pear blossom in tears, anyone would have tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex. Qin Sheng patted Zhou Qi's shoulder lightly and said, It's okay. Qin Shing's calm demeanor made those people on the opposite side very disgusted, especially after Qin Shing's words. Wasn't this a naked slap in the face? However, Qin Shing could say these words, which showed that Qin Shing also had confidence. It seemed that he was not afraid of them. The beautiful woman who started it and the man with glasses squinted thoughtfully. However, the burly man didn't seem to think about anything at all. He stood up directly and shouted at Qin Shing, "What the hell are you?" When he shouted this sentence, the beautiful woman who made trouble and the man with glasses subconsciously felt the dangerous atmosphere. When they wanted to persuade their friends, it was too late. They saw Qin Shing reach out like lightning, grab the man's arm, pulled it in an instant, and hit the man's abdomen with his knee. The strong man had no time to react. When he came to his senses, the great pain had passed to his brain, and his handsome face immediately became very ferocious. However, Qin Shing did not stop there. He wanted to teach the other party a lesson today. Anyway, he was going to be a playboy. Fighting and making trouble was nothing. If the other party's background was not strong, they could only be unlucky. If the other party's background was strong, it was exactly what Qin Shing wanted, which was to make trouble for others. So when he walked over, Qin Shing had already thought of a countermeasure. Therefore, before the strong man and his companions came to their senses, Qin Shing had already approached them directly. He suddenly exerted force and directly threw the man's huge body to the ground with a thud. No one expected that the scene would be so explosive. Qin Shing's sudden action shocked everyone, and everyone was scared to step back a few steps. This strong man was more than 1.8 meters tall. Although his muscles were very strong, they were all trained in the gym. They looked good but were useless, not to mention that he had no actual combat experience. What about Qin Shing? He didn't know how many times he had risked his life, and several times he had slipped back from the gates of hell. How could this man be Qin Shing's opponent? The man was directly stunned by Qin Shing's fall. He lay on the ground, struggling and groaning in pain. He couldn't get up no matter how hard he tried. His two friends were already stunned. "Don't you apologize?" Qin Shing ignored the strong man lying on the ground and went directly to the beautiful woman who made trouble. He asked in an unkind tone. Not to mention the other party was stunned, even Yu Kefi and Xia Ding were stunned. The boss was the boss. He didn't talk to the other party at all. He directly took action. They were still too far behind. Several beautiful women were attracted by Qin Shing's domineering appearance at the moment. Ji Min's eyes were about to emit golden light. It seemed that she wanted to directly offer herself to Qin Shing. No matter whether Qin Shing wanted it or not, she had to be shameless. As for Zhou Qi, who was beaten, it seemed that she was more excited than Ji Min. The image of Qin Shing just now had been completely imprinted in her mind. No matter how many years later, she could remember what this man had done for her today. "What do you want to do?" The beautiful woman was frightened by Qin Shing and shouted in fear. Qin Shing was a little funny and said, "Apologize, is it so difficult?" The man with glasses braced himself to stand up and said, "Dude, I advise you not to court death. Do you know who we are?" Qin Shing sneered and said, "Who you are has nothing to do with me. I just want her to apologize. If you don't want to hurt the innocent, get out of the way." "What if I don't get out of the way?" The man with glasses did not get out of the way. He responded very strongly and was not frightened by Qin Shing's behavior just now. Since Qin Shing was not polite and had no time to talk to him, he directly pushed the man away. The man wanted to resist, but how could he be Qin Shing's opponent? Before he could get close to Qin Shing, he was kicked away by Qin Shing and fell heavily to the ground. This time, the beautiful woman who was the initiator was completely scared. She didn't expect it to be like this. As for Qin Shing, he just wanted to be domineering. Who didn't know that? The beautiful woman wanted to run, but she couldn't move her legs. She could only watch Qin Shing walk in front of her. She still stubbornly said, "Do you know who I am? If you dare to touch me, I will not spare you." "Apologize." Qin Shing said two simple words, but then he said, "It's okay if you don't want to apologize. You hit my friend and my friend slaps you back. How about that?" The beautiful woman felt very wrong. She gritted her teeth with red eyes and didn't know what to do for a while. Qin Shing didn't say much. He just turned around and shouted to Zhou Qi, "Qi, come here." Zhou Qi was a little at a loss, but she still walked over slowly. She knew that no matter what happened today, this man would support her, so she was not afraid of anything at this time. After Zhou Qi walked over, Qin Shing said with a smile, "Give it back." Zhou Qi was a little hesitant, as if she dared not raise her arm. The beautiful woman also shouted, "How dare you?" Qin Shing comforted her, "It's okay. Don't be afraid. I'm here." Zhou Qi was still hesitating, and her expression was a little painful. She didn't know whether she should do this or not. Things had already come to this point. She really wanted to say something to Qin Shing or just let it go. She was afraid that she would get Qin Shing into trouble. Just when Zhou Qi was hesitating, and just when everyone was waiting. At this time, suddenly a man's strange voice came from behind. "Oh, I was wondering who was so bold. It turns out to be our first young master Qin." "Awesome, awesome." Qin Shing heard this somewhat familiar voice, and subconsciously raised his head to look not far away. When he saw the man's appearance, he knew that today's matter seemed to have just begun. Chapter 840. All of them. It was supposed to be a very simple matter. Both parties would just apologize to each other and smile at each other. Maybe they could even become friends. Unfortunately, the other party's arrogance and domineering eventually caused the matter to go completely out of control, which also gave Qin Shing a rare opportunity. No wonder Qin Shing gave them a taste of their own medicine. This was all their own doing. At this moment, Qin Shing did not feel any pressure at all. He could not wait for things to blow up as much as possible. That was why he attacked without hesitation. He would not reason with the other party like he did in the past. He would only attack if he could not reason with them anymore. What he was afraid of now was that the other party's background was not strong enough. If the background was too weak, the final result would be nothing more than them apologizing and admitting defeat. Qin Shing was afraid that he would not be able to achieve his goal. There was really no sense of achievement in trampling on a group of rich playboys who did not have a strong background. If their background was slightly stronger, perhaps it would be of some use to Qin Shing. At least, his reputation as a rich playboy would be spread out. If the other party's background was on par with his or was even more powerful than his, Qin Shing would be more than happy to see that. Then, he could continue to make trouble. Anyway, the bigger the trouble, the better it would be. The more people involved, the better. In this way, it would be best for him to make a name for himself. God knows how many people would know him, and he would achieve his goal. As for the final result, Qin Shing would not think too much about it. At worst, he could ask someone to clean up his mess for him. As long as he achieved his goal, it was fine. However, the probability of this happening was very small. Although Siju City was very big, it was still very small to encounter a city that was on par with or even more powerful than Qin Shing in Beijing. How could one be so lucky? Who knew that God was so interesting? The more impossible something was, the more likely it was to happen. When he saw that man appear, Qin Shing really wanted to look up to the sky and laugh out loud. His luck was too good. He could even meet someone like this. He really had no choice but to make trouble. In that case, he would make it bigger today. As for those rich playboys who had already suffered losses, they were destined to be cannon fodder today, and also destined to be the supporting characters this time. However, they could only blame themselves. They were used to being domineering and thought that no one dared to provoke them. Now that they had finally kicked an iron plate and met Qin Sheng, they could do nothing about it. The tall and sturdy man was directly knocked down by Qin Sheng, lying on the ground and moaning in pain. The elite man wearing glasses tried to stop Qin Sheng like a mantis trying to stop a chariot, but he was just digging his own grave. He was directly kicked away by Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng was left with the last beautiful woman who was the initiator to face Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng was alone, facing all of them directly. How could they not be afraid? Most importantly, they had said some harsh words, such as, "Do you know who we are? Do you know what the consequences will be today?" But after saying these words, the other party did not put them in his eyes and still beat them unscrupulously. It could be seen that the other party was definitely not simple. So the beautiful woman who hit them had already begun to worry, but because of her temper and her pride, she could not bow her head and admit her mistake, even if she was slapped. Just when her heart was dead, the main character of their trip appeared at this time. He was also their biggest support. As long as this man was here, they would not be afraid of anything. The losses and beatings they had just suffered would be paid back. The man's words attracted all the attention there. Whether it was the several people on the other side or on Qin Sheng's side, when they heard the man's words, they all got a message that was, this man knew Qin Sheng. Several girls might think that if they knew each other, today's matter would be reduced to a small matter, but Xia Ding and Yu Kefi could hear from the man's tone that this man seemed to be not very good with Qin Sheng. They did not know if the two sides had conflicts before or because of today's matter. Although they did not know who this man was, they could hear from this man's words that this man was definitely not simple. Otherwise, how could he be so confident? When the beautiful woman, who was about to break down, saw the man, she hurriedly ran over and almost cried, "Second brother, you have to help us." The man, who was called second brother, gently wiped her tears and said, "It's okay. With second brother here, you won't suffer today." Under the premise that he knew Qin Sheng's identity, he could still say such words, which showed that this man was really not simple. It seemed that he did not take Qin Sheng seriously at all, which was a little troublesome. The elite man wearing glasses also came over at this time, and said somewhat viciously, "Second brother, do you know them?" The man looked at Qin Sheng and others, pointed directly at Qin Sheng, and said very contemptuously, "I only know him, not them." At this time, the man had already slowly walked up to Qin Sheng. Apart from him, there were two companions with cold expressions following behind him. These two companions were both male. They had a neat crew cut, the corners of their faces were very clear, and their eyes were filled with murderous intent. They seemed to be the man's bodyguards. After the man walked in front of Qin Sheng, he did not rush to greet Qin Sheng. He just glanced at the strong man lying on the ground and said angrily, "Get up! You are a disgrace. How can I explain to your grandfather later?" When the brawny man on the ground heard this, he endured the pain and crawled up. Then, he stood dejectedly at the back of the crowd because there was nothing left for him to do. When this man appeared, everything was left to her. At this time, the two groups of people had separated, and it seemed that they were clearly separated. Ji Min, Zhou Qi, and the other girls all stood behind, while Xia Ding and Yu Kefi naturally stood beside Qin Sheng. No matter what the result of today's matter was, after Qin Sheng had done this, they would support Qin Sheng without hesitation and would never let Qin Sheng bear the responsibility alone. Xia Ding asked in a low voice, "Boss, who is he?" Qin Sheng replied calmly, "It's okay. Leave it to me." After hearing this, Xia Ding and Yu Kefi finally felt at ease. If Qin Sheng did not have this confidence, he would not say such a thing. It seemed that the next thing would be interesting. The man, who was called second brother by the other side, finally faced Qin Sheng at this time. In fact, the man's appearance was ordinary. He was estimated to be less than 1.8 meters tall, and his figure looked well proportioned. However, he won in temperament, vaguely having a strong aura. It seemed that after coming here, he naturally became the focus of the crowd, and no one could despise him. First young Master Qin, I really didn't expect to meet you here. It's really interesting. Do you still have free time now? The man squinted and teased. It seemed that he had already understood what this meant. Obviously, he was talking about the Qin family. This man actually knew the inside story of the Qin family, which was even more extraordinary. Qin Sheng was not surprised, because this man was really not simple. He was not inferior to Song Husheng and Su Xingwei. He was not a stranger. He was the first young Master Chen, whom Qin Sheng had met once. At that time, the two of them had quarreled with each other. He was one of the three most promising young men in Sizhou City, Chen Taihe of the Chen family. So far, Qin Sheng had thoroughly fought with the three top playboys in Sizhou City today. It was estimated that few people had such an honor. Needless to say, Song Husheng had never liked him. Although the Qin family and the Song family were friends, Song Husheng seemed to look down on him from the bottom of his heart, which made him a little puzzled from the beginning to the end. He did not know what the problem was. Su Xingwei could be regarded as Qin Sheng's old enemy. Originally, they should have been friends, because the Su family had interests in Chang'an. If these things did not happen later, Qin Sheng, as the heir of the Qin family, and Su Xingwei, as the future successor of the Su family, would definitely become very good friends because of the family relationship. At least, they could also be allies with interest. However, these things happened later. The Su family and the Qin family completely fell out. The Su family directly stood on the side of the sixth uncle, and wanted to kill the Qin family. Su Xingwei even directly went to Shanghai to confront Qin Sheng. Now the relationship between the two sides was like fire and water, and it was estimated that they would fight fiercely in the future. The last one was Chen Taihe. Although Qin Sheng did not have any direct contact with Chen Taihe, they did not leave a good impression on each other when they met. Obviously, Chen Taihe's sister, Qin Ran, was in a different circle. They should also have conflicts, so they did not like each other. Therefore, it was impossible for Qin Sheng to become friends with this rich playboy. However, even if they could not become friends, they should not become enemies. After all, Chen Taihe had a powerful background and a bright future. It was not good to offend such an enemy. Unexpectedly, they met like this today. Qin Sheng also felt somewhat helpless. Fate made fools of people. If it were not for the matter of the Qin family, Qin Sheng could probably turn a big problem into a small one. However, because of the matter of the Qin family, Qin Sheng could only rely on the first young Master Chen today. He hoped that he would not offend the first young Master Chen too much. Qin Sheng quietly looked Chen Taihe up and down. Regardless of other things, this Chen Taihe was indeed a very powerful figure. Therefore, he could not look down on this opponent. Consequently, Qin Sheng chuckled and said, "It did not occur to me that I would meet the first young Master Chen here. I don't know whether it is good luck or bad luck. What I did not expect was that the first young Master Chen still remembers me. I'm so honored." Now, among the top playboys in Sizhou City, even if they have not seen the first young Master Qin, how could I dare not remember you? Chen Taihe said sarcastically. After that, he turned around, looked at his companions, and said, "Do you know who this is?" Those rich playboys were somewhat confused. They had not seen this person before. However, since he dared to be so arrogant, he must not be simple. Consequently, they shook their heads subconsciously. Chen Taihe introduced slowly. "It doesn't matter if you don't know him. Just remember him in the future. He is the son of the famous Master Qin in Sizhou City. Moreover, he is the heir of the Chang'an group, which is as rich as a country. Don't you think he is powerful?" After Chen Taihe finished his introduction, those rich playboys behind him finally understood that this was the famous first young Master Qin. No wonder he was even more arrogant than them. If it were in the past, they could only accept the loss. After all, it was never too late for a gentleman to take revenge 10 years later. However, now that Master Qin and the Chang'an group had been in trouble, where did this first young Master Qin get the confidence to be arrogant? Chapter 841. Shedding all pretenses, it did not occur to Qin Sheng that he would meet Chen Taihe. Neither did Chen Taihe nor Qin Sheng. They did not have much contact with each other. However, they met each other by chance and had such a big conflict. Judging from the current situation, it would be difficult for them to settle this matter peacefully. As for Chen Taihe, there was no need to introduce his background in detail. His name represented everything. Not everyone could be compared with Su Xingwei and Song Husheng. The beautiful woman who started the fight was called Lu Yu. She graduated from the Imperial Polytechnic University in the UK and was now an executive in a private equity company in the financial street. Her grandfather had retired and was now the deputy director of a committee in the National People's Congress. Before he retired, he had been a high-ranking official in a frontier province. That was why she could be so unscrupulous, and the others in the circle also flattered her. The elite man with glasses was called Shenzhe. His family and the Chun family were old friends. His grandfather used to be Chen Taihe's grandfather's subordinate. Therefore, they had known each other since childhood. Although his family was not in Beijing now, he had a lot of connections in the neighboring Tianjin. Moreover, they were relatives in Beijing and Tianjin. Now he was working in Beijing, so he was close to Chen Taihe. The last one was Wei Dongxiu, a strong man who often went to the gym to hook up with girls. His family did not have a strong background. However, his father happened to be Chen Taihe's leader, and he happened to be in a department with real power. His career prospects were bright, so Chen Taihe drew him into this circle. Wei Dongxiu was a loyal friend, so he was close to Chen Taihe's group. Therefore, in today's conflict, Miss Lu Yu lost her temper and beat people. Wei Dongxiu, who had the lowest background, took the initiative to stand out in order to show off in front of Lu Yu. The elite man, Shenzhe, was calm and did not show up until the end. Everyone's identity determined what they would do. Now that Chen Taihe had shown up, they did not need to be afraid anymore. Qin Sheng's identity had been revealed. Finally, Lu Yu could face Qin Sheng face to face. Since Chen Taihe was here, Shenzhe and Wei Dongxiu did not need to take the first young Master Qin, whose family had declined, too seriously. "Oh, it's you, young Master Qin. I was wondering why you had such a bad temper. My apologies, my apologies." Lu Yu took the initiative to make things difficult for Qin Sheng and mocked him directly. Shenzhe and Wei Dongxiu did not say anything. They just looked at Qin Sheng with disdain. Their eyes were filled with pity and disdain, as if they were saying, "When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. How dare you show off here? Do you really not know how to spell the word death?" Before Qin Sheng could respond, Chen Taihe reprimanded him on purpose. "Lu Yi, who allowed you to talk like that? This is the first young Master Qin. We should be respectful, okay? Otherwise, you will be beaten up later. At that time, I won't be able to stop them." Lu Yi was Lu Yu's Xiaoming. Her family had called her that since she was a child. Later, her friends also called her that. Lu Yu was beautiful and had a good family background. After studying abroad, she was now working in the financial circle. Naturally, she was arrogant and looked down on everyone. "Second brother, I was wrong. I apologize to you, first young Master Qin." Lu Yu cooperated and replied with grievances. Then she said with a smile, "I'm sorry, first young Master Qin. The little girl failed to recognize Mount Tai and offended you. I hope you can be magnanimous and forgive me. You have taught me a lesson today. I, Lu Yu, will remember your kindness in the future." At this time, Shenzhe and Wei Dongxiu also echoed with a smile. "First young Master Qin, we will remember your kindness." At this time, Qin Shing did not know whether to laugh or cry. Speaking of acting, they were better than him. They cooperated very well and did not let him down. At this time, Xia Ding and Yu Kefi were a little worried again. The other party did not come with good intentions. After knowing Qin Shing's background, he could still be so arrogant, which was really not simple. Moreover, he had already known about the Qin family. "First young Master Qin, no matter what happened, we have apologized. Are you satisfied now?" Chen Taihe said lightly. Then he stared at Qin Shing. Since he had met Qin Shing today, he should have a good fight with this first young Master Qin. Qin Shing was expressionless. It was obvious that Chen Taihe was siding with his relatives but not with reason. When he was about to respond, Chen Taihe suddenly said, "Now it's time to talk about you and us. You beat two of my friends. What should I say?" Oh, as expected. It turned out that they were waiting here. However, Qin Shing chose to ignore Chen Taihe. Instead, he looked at Lu Yu, who was behind Chen Taihe, and said, "You are not apologizing to me. You are apologizing to my friends." Hearing this, Lu Yu said angrily, "Does she deserve it? How dare she make me apologize to her?" Behind Qin Shing, Zhou Qi's face turned pale. Hearing this, she felt a little wronged. She finally understood what a certain senior had told her in the past. Even in the entertainment industry, people like them were nothing in front of the big shots with real power and influence. Qin Shing said firmly, "No matter how beautiful a woman is and how good her family background is, if she is not educated, she is still an ugly soul. Shouldn't she apologize after doing something wrong? I wonder who taught you this." Chen Taihe sneered and said, "First young Master Qin, don't push your luck." Hearing this, Lu Yu was a little angry. Since she was a child, everyone had spoiled her. Even if she did something wrong, they would coax her. She had never seen anyone who dared to bully her like this. She pointed at Qin Shing's nose and said, "Who do you think you are? Do you think you are still the first young Master Qin? Do you really think you are someone important?" Qin Shing did not get angry because of their words. Instead, he sneered and said, "I'm just making a point." The atmosphere, which had calmed down, became hostile again. Chen Taihe could not help but say playfully, "Interesting, interesting. I didn't expect that the first young Master Qin would have such a bad temper. Instead of apologizing after hitting my friend, you actually want us to apologize. I really need to reason with you about this." Qin Shing asked in reply, "Do I need to reason with you?" Chen Taihe was a little angry. Qin Shing is really taking advantage of me. Does he really think that he is still the first young Master Qin? Your Qin family can't even protect itself. Without the Qin family, what are you? Chen Taihe looked at Qin Shing and said, "What if we don't apologize today?" Qin Shing said casually, "It's very simple. She hit my friend. If she apologizes, this matter will be over. If she doesn't apologize, let my friend return it to her, and this matter will be over." After hearing this, Chen Taihe laughed involuntarily and said, "Qin Shing, are you joking?" Qin Shing replied indifferently, "Then just take it as a joke." Chen Taihe did not believe that Qin Shing dared to hit Lu Yu in front of him. It was okay for him to not take Lu Yu seriously. However, if he did not take Chen Taihe seriously, he would be really unscrupulous. Even if the Qin family had not been in trouble, Chen Taihe would not take Qin Shing seriously. Moreover, the Qin family had been in trouble now. Who was Qin Shing? Chen Taihe said coldly, "I don't believe that you dare to hit Lu Yu." Qin Shing looked back at Zhou Qi and said with a smile, "Qi, let me return this slap for you." Zhou Qi did not know what to say. The current situation had already gone beyond her imagination. She did not know what to do. She just looked at Qin Shing blankly. Qin Shing did not wait for her answer. He directly turned around and walked toward Lu Yu. Lu Yu was somewhat scared and took 2 steps back. Chen Taihe, who was standing beside her, said coldly, Qin Sheng, don't be so shameless. Chen Taihe had already planned to shed all pretenses of cordiality. He insulted Qin Sheng unscrupulously and did not take Qin Sheng seriously at all. Qin Sheng was not moved at all. He continued to walk forward. Lu Yu was so scared that her face turned pale. She said, "You dare to hit me? My family will definitely not let you off." Qin Sheng was about to stand in front of Lu Yu. He chuckled and said, "That's a matter for the future." After that, Qin Sheng took 2 more steps forward. He raised his arm and was about to slap Lu Yu. If he slapped her, what happened today would be completely out of control. Who knew how Lu Yu and the Lu family behind her would fight back? Chen Taihe did not dare to take this risk. If Qin Sheng really slapped her, he would definitely get involved in this trouble. Secondly, he would not be able to explain it to the Lu family later. Although he did not need to be afraid of the Lu family, he was Chen Taihe. What would others think of him? Qin Sheng was trying to take advantage of him. Consequently, Chen Taihe said angrily, "Stop him." After hearing Chen Taihe's words, the 2 men who had been standing behind the crowd, who did not look like ordinary people, stood out without hesitation. They directly stood in front of Lu Yu and blocked Qin Sheng's way. Lu Yu finally let out a sigh of relief. However, she hated Qin Sheng more and more. The man with a buzz cut and an indifferent expression said calmly, "Child Qin, don't make things difficult for us." Qin Sheng said with a smile, "You want to stop me?" The other man replied, "Child Qin, don't force us to fight." Chen Taihe was already as steady as a mountain at this moment. Since Qin Sheng wanted to play hard, he could not blame him for being impolite. He had no choice but to use this method. As long as Qin Sheng dared to hit them, they would have a reason to do so. So what if they shed all pretenses of cordiality? It was because Qin Sheng dared to ignore Chen Taihe. As for the future, no matter who asked about this matter, he would have a reason to answer. That was because Qin Sheng only had himself to blame. Moreover, he was not afraid of the Qin family's counterattack. After all, the Qin family was already in trouble. Facing the 2 roadblocks, Qin Sheng said disapprovingly, "Do you think you can do that?" Originally, Qin Sheng wanted to make a big deal out of this matter. It was just a little bit. If he just let it go, he would not achieve his purpose at all. He would not have such an opportunity in the future. Not everyone could meet a top playboy like Chen Taihe every day. Since Chen Taihe had given him such an opportunity, how could Qin Sheng miss it? Consequently, after saying this, Qin Sheng took 2 steps forward almost subconsciously. Everyone stared at them. They did not know in which direction the situation would develop. They also did not know who would clean up the mess after Mars collided with Earth. Since Qin Sheng chose not to give face to Chen Taihe would not take Qin Sheng seriously, either. After Qin Sheng continued to take 2 steps forward, Chen Taihe gave him a determined look. The 2 trusted subordinates almost took action at the same time, facing Qin Sheng directly. Qin Sheng seemed to be in danger. Chapter 842. Are you sure? 1 against 2, Qin Sheng was in danger. The 2 buzzcut men that Chen Taihe brought with him were not ordinary people. They might not be experienced in battles, but they were well trained. If it was a working day, Chen Taihe would not take them with him. After all, it would not be good for him to take them with him, and he was not qualified to do so. However, as long as he went out, Chen Taihe would definitely take them with him. Only in this way could he feel at ease. He was not an ordinary person. He was the favored one whom many people had high hopes for. His life was more important than anyone else's. In particular, he had almost died in an accident before. Therefore, since then, Chen Taihe had been more concerned about his safety than anyone else's. Who would have thought that it would come in handy today? Chen Taihe did not believe that he could not stop an ordinary Qin Sheng. He did not want to fight with Qin Shing either. Even though the Qin family was in trouble now, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. Moreover, the circle of the Qin family was intricate. He did not want to offend Qin Shing completely. It would be fine as long as they minded their own business. However, Qin Shing was courting death. Then don't blame Chen Taihe. Even if he would be hated by others in the future, he would accept it today. On Qin Shing's side, when the two men made their moves, the girls were all frightened. Zhou Qi was especially worried about Qin Shing. After all, everything that had happened today was caused by her. She did not expect things to turn out like this. If Qin Shing were to get hurt because of her, she really did not know how she would deal with it. Yu Kefi was also very worried. They dared to take action against Qin Shing. As Qin Shing's best friend, how could he sit back and do nothing? This was not his style. Anyway, it had been like this now. No matter how big the trouble was today, he would stand up and bear with Qin Shing. He would never let Qin Shing be in the front alone. Therefore, after they took action, Yu Kefi was ready to rush up to help. However, before he rushed up, he had been stopped by Xia Ding. Others did not know Qin Shing's strength, but how could Xia Ding not know? Qin Shing was a ruthless person who had escaped from death many times. How could he not deal with these two men? What was more, he and Yu Kefi were ordinary people. They were vulnerable to such a ruthless person. They could not help Qin Shing, but would make trouble for him. Yu Kefi did not understand. Third brother, what do you mean? Don't we help? Xia Ding smiled and explained, Don't worry, boss can handle it. Don't worry. Boss can handle it? Yu Kefi was confused. At this time, Qin Shing had already started to fight with the two men with buzzcut. When the two men made their moves, Qin Shing subconsciously took 2 steps back. The rest of the people had already dispersed. Otherwise, they might be implicated by the fire at the city gate. The two men seemed to be holding back a lot. After forcing Qin Shing to retreat, they were unwilling to attack again. However, Qin Shing did not stop there. Instead of retreating, he directly rushed forward and punched the man on the left fiercely. The man did not seem to take it seriously and just casually used his arm to block it. However, at the moment when the two of them exchanged blows, he could feel how strong Qin Shing was. He could not help but turn pale with fright. The man on the right wanted to stop Qin Shing and grabbed Qin Shing's shoulder. Qin Shing turned around and forced the man to retreat. Then he punched directly on the man's chest. The huge impact directly made the man take a few steps back. His chest was so painful that he could not breathe. At this time, the man on the left had already attacked again. This time, he did not despise Qin Shing. He already knew Qin Shing's strength, so he took the initiative to attack Qin Shing. Qin Shing hurriedly dodged. The man pressed forward step by step. Before Qin Shing could stand firm, a series of attacks made Qin Shing unable to adjust the rhythm. After a few seconds, Qin Shing finally found an opportunity. He must quickly solve the man's offensive. Otherwise, when the man on the right came back, he would be attacked from both the front and the back. At that time, the situation would be even more dangerous. Therefore, when the man's foot fell, Qin Shing directly locked the man's ankle. Then, he leaned forward and hit the man's shoulder with his elbow. When the man wanted to retreat, Qin Shing directly stepped on the man's knee, jumped up high, and hit the man's face with his knee. The man wanted to block it, but it was too late. Qin Shing directly knocked the man over, and his whole face was bleeding in an instant. This process only took a few seconds. The man on the right had already returned. Taking advantage of Qin Shing's unguarded, he kicked Qin Shing's back, almost causing Qin Shing to fall to the ground. The girls behind could not help but exclaim. They were so scared that they did not dare to breathe, for fear that Qin Shing would be knocked down. Since Qin Shing had already dealt with one of them, the pressure on him was instantly reduced. Although he had suffered a kick, it was not a big deal. After he staggered and stood firm, he subconsciously moved a few steps sideways. As expected, the man on the right had already sent another kick down from the sky, right at the place where Qin Sheng was just now. If Qin Sheng did not dodge in time, he would probably be seriously injured. Qin Sheng stared at the man, who seemed to be a little flustered and exasperated, with a disdainful smile at the corner of his mouth. He was the only one left. Qin Sheng had nothing to be afraid of. Not far away, when Qin Sheng solved the man on the left, Chen Taihe and others were shocked. They did not expect Qin Sheng to be so powerful. Even if Qin Sheng just taught Shen Zhe and Wei Dongxiu a lesson, they did not think that Qin Sheng could face these two professional martial artists. Now they had to re-examine the man in front of them. Was this really the young master of the Qin family who returned to the Qin family last year? On Qin Sheng's side, Yu Kefi was a little worried at the beginning. But when Qin Sheng showed his absolute strength, especially after Qin Sheng killed one of the men, Yu Kefi finally understood Xia Ding's words. Was this still the dormitory boss in college? How could he be so good at fighting? It was estimated that even the bodyguards at home were not his opponent. However, Qin Sheng did not care about what they thought. His current goal was to get rid of the last one. There was no need for him to exchange blows with them. He just needed to crush them. After all, they were not the protagonists. They were just Chen Taihe's lackeys. Therefore, after turning around, Qin Sheng suddenly jumped high and kicked the man on the right several times. The man did not expect Qin Sheng's explosive power to be so strong. He could only use his arms to block and take a few steps back. After Qin Sheng landed, he did not give the man a chance to catch his breath, nor did he give him a chance to fight back. Qin Sheng hit the man hard with his elbow with great force. In a hurry, the man could only stretch out his arms again to block Qin Sheng's attack. However, his arms had already withstood too much damage just now. How could he still block Qin Sheng now? Qin Sheng's elbow directly smashed the man to the ground. He wanted to push Qin Sheng away, but he did not have the strength to do so. Qin Sheng sneered and made a move again like lightning. He lifted his knee and hit the man's shoulder directly. The man no longer had the power to resist. He was directly knocked out by Qin Sheng and fell heavily to the ground. Qin Sheng did not stop there. What he wanted was to make the man completely lose his combat power and no longer be a threat to him. Therefore, Qin Sheng followed up again. At the moment when the man just fell to the ground, Qin Sheng was already in front of him. Without giving the man a chance to stand up, Qin Sheng knelt on his back fiercely. The man lay on the ground again. He realized that danger had come, but what could he do? The next second, a heavy punch hit the side of his face. The man instantly fell to the ground and fell unconscious. At this point, the two men with extraordinary skills were crushed by the abnormal Qin Sheng, leaving a group of people dumbfounded. No one had expected that the result would be like this. Apart from suffering some losses and getting some minor injuries, Qin Sheng was fine. Now, it was Chen Taihe who was embarrassed. He chose to fall out with Qin Sheng and directly used two ruthless people to deal with Qin Sheng. According to his plan, Qin Sheng could force Qin Sheng to retreat. If Qin Sheng sought his own death, he could do nothing but let them beat Qin Sheng back. At that time, Qin Sheng would naturally retreat and not dare to act rashly. However, he did not expect that the result would be like this. Qin Sheng was actually so powerful that even his two trusted bodyguards were not a match for him. They were defeated by Qin Sheng just like that. At this moment, the expression on Chen Taihe's face kept changing. He did not know what to say for a while. The other people on their side were also scared silly. They stood there with a confused look on their faces, afraid that Qin Sheng would kill them. Since the two bodyguards were not a match for Qin Sheng, how could they be a match for him? Moreover, Shen Zhe and Wei Dongxiu had already suffered losses from Qin Sheng. After finishing the fight, Qin Sheng let out a long sigh of relief. Fortunately, his skills were not rusty. Otherwise, he would have been disgraced today. If he had known that this would happen, he would have called Lao Chang, who was resting in the hall, over. Based on Lao Chang's skills, these two people were not even enough to fill the gaps between his teeth. In this way, he would not have to fight them directly. After Qin Shing came to himself, he looked at Chen Taihe and said, "Child Chen, is that all you have?" Instead of getting angry, Chen Taihe suddenly smiled and said, "Awesome. The first young master Qin is really awesome. It did not occur to me that the first young master Qin is also a martial artist. It seems that I underestimated you." "Then, Child Chen, will you still stop me?" Qin Shing asked with a smile. Although his tone was quite casual, the meaning behind his words was quite obvious. "You can try to stop me again." Chen Taihe shrugged his shoulders and replied awkwardly, "Qin Shing, are you threatening me? Why? Do you also want to beat me? You can have a try. I don't believe that you have the guts." Qin Shing did not know whether to laugh or cry on purpose as he said, "Child Chen, we have neither enmity nor hatred in the past. Why should I beat you? Besides, how dare I beat you? You are the first young master Chen. I really don't have the guts. But if I want to stop you, what should I do?" Chen Taihe still did not give up. It seemed that he was going to fight with Qin Shing to death today. He wanted to see who would laugh in the end. Anyway, he had been slapped in the face by Qin Shing today and lost his face. He was not afraid of anything anymore. He wanted to see how Qin Shing would court death. Qin Shing stopped smiling and replied directly, "That's another matter." Chen Taihe frowned and thought for a while. All of a sudden, he stepped aside and said in a playful tone, "Qin Shing, since you want to do this, just do it. I won't stop you. However, I hope you can think about what kind of revenge you will bear in the future. Don't make it worse for the Qin family at that time. Don't blame someone for taking advantage of you when you are down." Qin Shing was not moved at all. He did not even think about what Chen Taihe had said. He walked directly to Lu Yu, who was trembling in fear. She had heard what Chen Taihe had said. That was, Chen Taihe did not care about her anymore. Moreover, she did not even have the chance to run away now. Even if she wanted to run away, could she? Lu Yu said in a trembling voice, "What do you want to do?" Qin Shing said calmly, "Since you still don't want to apologize, don't blame me for what I will do." Lu Yu did not know whether she was scared or wronged. Her eyes were already red and tears were streaming down her face. Was she really going to be beaten? Or did she choose to apologize? In this way, she would not know that she would be slapped in the face. She had never been wronged like this since she grew up. However, it seemed that if she apologized, she would feel worse than being beaten. No matter how hard she tried, she could not say anything to apologize. Consequently, Lu Yu chose to go all the way. That was, she was determined not to apologize. Even if she would be beaten, she would accept it. After all, she would not be killed. When she went back and complained to her grandfather, he would help her. She did not believe that she could not take revenge. Qin Shing gave Lu Yu several seconds to think about it. However, Lu Yu still did not apologize. Qin Shing had no choice but to raise his arm and was about to slap Lu Yu in the face. Chen Taihe and the others just watched. After Chen Taihe said those words, no one dared to stop Qin Shing. He wanted to see whether Qin Shing dared to do it or not. He did not believe that Qin Shing was really a reckless fool. When the Qin family was in such a difficult situation, he still wanted to make things worse for the Qin family. After all, it was very easy for the Lu family to make trouble for the Qin family. At this moment, Zhou Qi, who had been hiding behind the crowd, finally could not bear the pressure anymore. She did not want Qin Shing to offend these so-called big shots for her. Although she felt wronged after being slapped, she was just an ordinary person after all. It was not worth it for Qin Shing to stand up for her. Moreover, she owed Qin Shing such a big favor. How could she pay him back? Should she devote herself to him? It seemed that Qin Shing did not like her. Otherwise, How could she have been refused by Qin Sheng when she offered herself to him that night? Consequently, Zhou Qi could not help but shout, "Master Qin, forget it. I forgive her." This sentence instantly drew everyone's attention to Zhou Qi, including Qin Sheng. Everyone stared at Zhou Qi with different eyes. It seemed that they did not expect that Zhou Qi would say that. Some people were confused, some people felt lucky, and some people did not understand. As for Qin Sheng, he looked back and stared at Zhou Qi for a few seconds. No one knew what he was thinking. After a long time, he asked, "Are you sure?" Zhou Qi cried and said, "Master Qin, it's not worth it. It's not worth it for you to do this for me." Hearing this, Qin Sheng sighed and shook his head helplessly with a bitter smile. Finally, he put down his arm and said to Xia Ding and Yu Kefi, "Let's go." Xia Ding and Yu Kefi's eyes were somewhat complicated. They did not know what was going on now. However, they quickly walked toward Qin Sheng and then followed him to leave. Ji Min and others also supported Zhou Qi and followed them. This farce came to an end. No one stopped Chen Taihe. However, Chen Taihe's eyes were somewhat sinister. He would remember what happened today. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.